Manchin, and specifically the statement that was released on Thursday evening, in which the read or the assessment was that the senator thought that statement blamed him in a way that wasn't in keeping with the approach that he and the president had been dealing with.
I have not yet read his article. It's been a busy day, but I will tell you that our intention, I think if you look back to last Thursday, was to provide an update on the future of Build Back Better. And I think it is not a secret where there is opposition to Build Back Better moving forward and where there is support, which is the vast majority of the Democratic caucus. That was not intended to be directive or hurtful, but to be a statement of fact. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Jen. In a press call this afternoon, Representative Jayapal, chair, one of the House Progressive Caucus, called on President Biden to pursue executive action to pass components of the Build Back Better legislation. Is this something that the White House would consider or even thinks is a realistic possibility to pass some of these elements?
Well, I haven't had a chance to discuss Representative Jayapal's call with our legislative team. I'm not aware of that being under discussion. Obviously, we have used executive authority and executive action for a range of steps to make a range of progress, and the president has not hesitated to do that. The benefit of legislation is obviously it makes it permanent, so there's a lot of value in that, but I can see if that's something more under active consideration.
Regarding communications with Senator Manchin, you've not said much on that. I mean, are you able to confirm that whether or not President Biden has reached out to the senator today?
I'm not going to detail contacts further. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. Just to drill down a little bit on that, moving forward, you've already taken Senator Manchin to the woodshed. You going to invite him back into the fold? Are you going to try to reach out to him?
Of course, and we conveyed yesterday that.
And secondly...
And I would also note the last sentence of my 2 sentences of the statement was, but we will not relent in the fight to help Americans with their child care, health care, prescription drug costs, and elder care. The fight for Build Back Better is too important to give up. We will find a way to move forward next year. It also made clear that we absolutely want to work with Senator Manchin and all Democrats to get this done.
Are you going to work with try to bring GOP members into the fold?
We would certainly welcome their efforts, or whether their support for lowering costs for the American people and driving up economic growth.
And
we would.
Follow, if I may, on COVID. You said 14 times more likely to die unvaccinated. Is there a point in time where this administration, I mean, what you said recently about, hey, for those who are vaccinated, it's mild or asymptomatic. For those who are not, death and destruction awaits you. So are you pretty much done trying to be diplomatic on this? Is it over with?
I think our responsibility and the president's responsibility is to continue to convey the risks, to continue, to make sure we are increasing access for vaccines, access to information to the public, and that's what you'll hear him talk about tomorrow. Go ahead, Jackie.
Thanks, Jen. Did the White House share the Thursday statement with Senator Manchin before it was put out, and what was his reaction to that?
I'm not going to detail private discussions or private sharing of statements in advance.
And then on his call out to Democrats for badgering him, saying that they believe that he could be moved in his position somehow. Is there any regret within the White House or within discussions with Democratic leadership just about how this negotiation went, given that statement from him that he feels that he's been badgered and beaten?
Well, that certainly is not our objective, never has been our objective, but our objective is getting this legislation passed and reminding the American people and all people who could vote for it what the stakes are. So no, we don't have regrets about aggressively communicating about it and making sure people understand that if we don't pass this legislation, costs for the American people will go up and economic growth projections will not go in the right direction.
This shows, though, that Democrats just don't have a large enough majority to pull off this kind of transformational legislation without significant bumps in the road. But the president, ran as a moderate. Joe Biden is asking for any major policy changes, Manchin's asking for major policy changes to be bipartisan. So why are Biden and Manchin seemingly so far apart on this, where Manchin's wanting to bring Republicans in and the president has, tried to work this out just within the Democrats?
The president would welcome Republicans joining this effort to lower the cost of childcare, to make sure that families aren't paying thousands of dollars for insulin, to make sure people can afford care for their parents and loved ones. He would welcome that. I think it's not a secret that opposition is driven by the concern by many in the Republican Party that they don't want to raise taxes on corporations and highest income. That's not a secret, but certainly we'd welcome support or engagement from any Republicans in this effort to get this done.
And then on Omicron and the announcements coming tomorrow, one of the items that you guys have consistently said is on the table and is being evaluated is vaccine mandates for domestic air travel. Is that something that you guys have reached a decision on?
I don't have anything new on that. I think we've said in the past that masking is something we know is effective and works. I would expect tomorrow you'll hear more from the president on what we're going to do more about making vaccines and testing accessible and what the American people can expect over the next couple of months.
Real quick on this ruling from the Sixth Circuit on the vaccine or test mandate. Obviously, this has been, a bit of back and forth between the different circuits, and it's still caught up in the, whole process. I understand that the White House has consistently said, look to this deadline. We're going to continue pushing toward it. But you're having some businesses like, Amtrak last week just said that they were going to have to cut service, and then a few days later said, just kidding, we're not going to. This obviously might change that calculus again. So what's the message?
Amtrak didn't say that it was related to a vaccine mandate. They said they gave other reasons for it. And also they had 94% or higher percentage of their employees vaccinated.
They did, but they also said on the Hill in the hearing that because they would need to hire qualified employees who met their vaccine requirements, that they anticipated having to cut service from, I think, January to March. And I know what you're referring to, where they listed off some other concerns. I think it was related to hiring that was paused during the
they talked about a range of challenges they were having, but also I would note that 94%, if not higher at this point, of Amtrak employees are vaccinated. We also know that 60% of businesses, if not higher at this point, have put in place vaccine requirements or testing requirements because they know it's effective for the economy and it creates a safe workplace. So we are certainly welcome the Sixth Circuit's decision. We feel that the vaccination or testing rules will ensure businesses enact measures that protect employees, create more certainty for the economy, and we don't feel that this is a time for organizations to be backing away from these requirements.
You don't feel like this is a sort of back and forth, like businesses are getting whiplash, the customers are getting whiplash from announcements like this?
I think what's clear is that if you have the vast majority of companies in this country putting in place restrictions and requirements, testing requirements, that it's an indication that this creates certainty in the workplace, ensures there's a healthy workplace, and that is outside of this OSHA requirement. Go ahead.
Jen, the president's own medical advisors have suggested that if people are going to gather with family this holiday, that they try to do an at-home rapid test beforehand, but we're seeing such a lack of the supply at so many different stores. There are very long lines all across the Northeast. So what is the White House doing specifically right now to help Americans get access to these tests? And will the president speak to the frustration on that front many are feeling during his remarks tomorrow?
Absolutely, he will. I would note that to date, and we've always said this would always be a building process. Our objective is to make tests accessible and free for Americans. There are a lot of ways to do that, and there are different ways that Americans are getting access to tests. If you have health insurance, you can go to your doctor. Everyone does not have health insurance. 150 million Americans obviously do. We've also made 50 million tests recently available to community health centers and rural health sites. There are 20,000 free testing sites across the country, and we are going to continue to build on that, and the president will talk about that tomorrow.
Does the White House feel like right now the administration is doing enough to get Americans access to these tests?
We always feel we need to be doing more, and that's what the president will talk about tomorrow.
And just some quick housekeeping items. Given this surge and the spike right now from the variant, how often is the president being tested for COVID, and when was he last tested?
He is regularly tested. I will check for you on the last time he was tested.
And are there any other protocols on campus right now that are changing to accommodate? For instance, you talked about breakthrough cases. That's something you would expect. that would be in fully vaccinated people. Are these staffers who also have been boosted? And is it White House policy that if you're working on campus or in close proximity with the president, that you have a booster or third dose?
Our policy, it is heavily recommended to get a booster. If you are going to be in close proximity with the president, you're required to be tested that day. That goes over and above typical protocols. Given the workplace we work in, that certainly is appropriate. And of course, we have masking requirements that are in place as well. So there hasn't been a change. Obviously, we will continue to consult with our health and medical experts if any changes need to be put into place.
And are there any changes right now to the holiday receptions that were already altered but that are open to some members of the public here at the White House?
The open houses?
Yes.
There are individuals who are attending those are required to be tested in advance.
And any changes to the president's holiday plans at this time, given the spike?
Not at this time. Go ahead.
Thanks. And back on Build Back Better, I'm just curious, what was the reaction among senior staffers here when Joe Manchin said that the president's aides alienated him, and that's the real reason that he backed away from the bill?
I think our statement yesterday speaks for itself.
Joe Manchin said that that statement was an example of retaliation by the White House. What's your response to that?
The statement was a statement of facts of the events of what happened over the last few weeks, and it was simply an effort to make that clear to the American people.
What does this episode teach the White House about the prospects of voting rights? Joe Manchin has also said that he wants that to be a bipartisan effort. Is it going to become law by the time that this Congress is out?
Well, that is certainly our objective. And you saw, I think, in Leader Schumer's dear colleague that he put out this morning that he plans to bring voting rights up when they get back, when the Senate gets back in January. And we certainly support that, and we'll stay in close coordination with him and his team to get that done. Go ahead.
Jen, in terms of the climate provisions in Build Back Better, does the president think that he can achieve the goals that he set out to reach by 2030 without legislation? And as a result of this, is the administration looking at additional executive actions that could be taken on climate to try to meet some of those goals?
We're always looking at additional steps we can take. That has not changed. As you know, I think there are multiple paths to reaching the president's climate goals. We have every intention of passing Build Back Better, which includes enormous climate provisions. I would note that there are a number of steps we have taken without legislation, and certainly will continue to build on that, including setting a bold target to cut greenhouse gas pollution in America 50 to 52% below 2005 levels by 2030, tackling super pollutants, phasing down HFCs and addressing methane leaks, rallying the world to focus on methane in Glasgow. We stood with auto workers and America's big car manufacturers to roll out plans to boost electric vehicles and create opportunities to save car owners money. We put America on track for 1 of every 2 cars sold to be zero emissions within the decade, and we jump-started offshore wind. I share all of that because that has been done without the benefit, the vast majority of it, of legislation. There are also components in the infrastructure package and law that will also help take steps forward, including the largest investment in passenger rail, helping reduce GHG emissions, building a national network of EV chargers, electrifying thousands of EV school buses, investments in port and airport infrastructure to repair, maintain, and reduce congestion, largest investment in resilience, replacing America's lead pipes and service lines, and the largest investment in tackling legacy pollution. So I would say it is clear from the president's accomplishments and agenda to date that climate and the climate crisis is going to continue to be front and center for him. We're absolutely going to working to get Build Back Better done, and we are not going to wait to continue to look at a range of options.
And just one on schools. Prince George's County nearby is going to virtual learning through mid-January. Does the administration have a view on whether local districts should revert to virtual learning, in the next few months as the Omicron variant progresses?
We continue to believe that local school districts will need to make the decisions that they feel are appropriate for their communities. Our objective and the president's objective is to keep schools open, and 99% of them are open, have been open, and we believe we have the tools to do that. One of the steps we've talked about a little bit is Test to Stay, which is a proposal that's been out there by a number of health officials, where if your kid is in school now, and you probably know this and I know this, and they have a close contact, typically they have to quarantine or be out of school, and there have been health experts who have recommended that there can be a contact tracing and testing regimen that can allow kids to stay in school, and that is very intriguing to the president, and that is what our focus is on. Go ahead.
May I ask, with regards to the speech tomorrow, whether the president has spoken with his health advisors of the CDC about whether they need to change their guidance on Omicron? Will this be part of the speech in particular? For instance, right now we're seeing a lot of breakthrough cases right now with vaccinated people if they're not boosted. But the guidance right now says you don't have to isolate if you've been exposed if you're fully vaccinated. Should that change? Should the 10-day timelines change? Do we need to pretty substantially overhaul these guidance for the Omicron variant, given how fast it seems to replicate?
Look, I think the president's view is that if that is the guidance and the belief of his health and medical experts, who he engages with and is briefed by regularly, then he is looking to them for that guidance. As you know, they haven't changed that guidance to date, but given the spread of Omicron, given the transmissibility of Omicron, of course they're continuing to look at a range of steps.
Well, we don't expect that to be part of tomorrow's speech.
I don't have anything more to preview for you, but again, the focus of the president's speech tomorrow is providing expectations to the American people of what they can look ahead to over the next couple of months, and an understanding and an update on what he and his administration are going to do more.
Baseline expectation for the president right now that cases are going to continue to rise. Francis Collins retired and mourned on the way out that we could see a fairly substantial rise in cases, like hundreds and hundreds of thousands.
And I think Dr. Fauci has discussed that as well. As you know, Josh, I think some of it depends, as they have both, I believe, spoken to, on the steps taken by people in this country to get vaccinated, to take necessary precautions. But certainly, we continue to believe that, based on science, that the boosters can protect people, can prevent hospitalization and death, and that's why we are going to continue to echo that out to the public.
Sorry, forgive me.
Go ahead.
I know you don't want to bark too much up the tree of what happened.
Federal Reserve or something else. No. Okay.
I'll talk tomorrow.
Okay.
The president, of course, spoke with Senator Manchin many times. Senator Manchin seems to be essentially blaming the White House, right? He's referring to comments made by or staff or actions taken by the president's staff. He hasn't necessarily specified what those are. There are indications that it's perhaps a statement from Thursday. Do you think that there was a misstep on the part of the administration here? Because it feels like if you can't sort out what ticked him off, it's sort of difficult to imagine a path forward on whatever efforts to salvage this will be undertaken in the next weeks and months.
Well, look, I can't speak for Senator Manchin on what has upset him. I'll let him speak to that himself with more specifics if he chooses to, and he may or may not choose to, and that's his prerogative. All I can convey is that we continue to focus on how we're going to get this done. The door remains open. The president considers him a longtime friend, someone he's worked with on a range of initiatives and objectives over the course of the last several years that they've known each other, and that's really where we're coming at this from. Go ahead.
Thanks, Jan. Earlier, I wanted to ask, is the president's speech, will it also talk about life with COVID beyond a few months? The president talked in the past about ending COVID, but experts certainly seem to say that COVID may be here to stay much longer than that. Does the president share those views, and will that be discussed tomorrow in any way?
Again, we're still finalizing the speech, so I can only really give you a preview of what we know to date, which is what I've already outlined here. Understand that certainly is a question out there and what it looks like, and we will continue to consult with our health and medical experts on that.
Does the president still feel like COVID can be ended?
His objective is to continue to make vaccines available, reduce cases around the country, reduce hospitalizations and deaths across the country, and do that through making vaccines, testing, and a range of utilities available.
On tests, you talked about the Defense Production Act being used to boost tests.
Yep.
And that there's going to be some conversation tomorrow about increasing use of increasing availability of tests. Should we expect announcement about the DPA being used to help bring more tests to the country?
We're already using the DPA, so that's already happening. But I'm not going to get ahead more of the president's. I know he's been meeting with his COVID team while I've been out here, so I can't. There's not much more I can preview at this point in time. Go ahead.
I've got a question about Build Back Better and then a question about the coronavirus.
Sure.
Build Back Better, returning to Josh and Bill's questions about Senator Manchin blaming White House staff. Steve Verchetti was reportedly a top liaison with Senator Manchin. Is Mr. Verchetti or any other West Wing staff being reassigned as a result of Manchin's complaints?
No, and Senator Manchin hasn't even outlined more detail.
Okay, and on the coronavirus, last week I asked President Biden on the lawn about 800,000 American deaths. When I asked him why he hadn't done more to press China to be transparent on the origins of the pandemic, he smiled and walked away without giving a verbal answer. I'm wondering why was that his reaction, and can you give us an update on anything he has done to press China for transparency, especially to ensure that there isn't another pandemic?
Well, we put out an extensive statement from the president on the 800,000 deaths, which I'm sure many of you noted. And again, I would just reiterate what we've said many times, is that we are going to continue to press China to be more transparent, to participate in the global community's effort to push them to do more to get to the origins of the virus. As you know, we've also tapped into all of the resources we have here through our intelligence community, through working with our partners and allies, and we will continue to press to do that. Go ahead.
Does the administration regret the earlier guidance on booster shots where not everybody was eligible and they weren't made to look like they were an essential part of protecting people from the pandemic?
That was a decision made by our health and medical experts, so I would point you to them. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi Jen. Does the administration have any plans to lift the travel ban on several southern African countries, given the fact that Omicron is clearly already here and is kind of spreading pretty rapidly?
I mean, our objective is to not, this is not a permanent ban at all. It is temporary, and we are continuing to assess day to day the decision to lift that ban. But yes, that is our intention, to lift the ban.
Okay, got it. And then also,
I don't have a timeline on that at this point in time to conclude my answer there. Okay. Go ahead.
And then a second question for you, just because of a follow-up on the vaccine mandates for large employers. Those guidelines currently don't include anything about booster shots. Is there going to be any sort of update to those requirements that'll include further guidance on, whether boosters will be included as a requirement to towards being fully vaccinated, essentially?
Sure, it's a good question. So we would first, the CDC has not changed their evaluation of what being fully vaccinated means. I think Dr. Fauci has said it's not a matter of if but when, and then obviously we base any of our policies from the federal government on the CDC guidance. So that would be the first step if and when they were to change that. Go ahead.
Can you bring us up to speed? I just have two questions, one on Russia, one on Afghanistan. Can you bring us up to speed on conversations between the White House and the Kremlin over the weekend? And can you clarify the administration's stance on some of the specific demands that Russia made? For example, most importantly, the one that Ukraine not be allowed to join NATO.
Sure. Well, let me first say I know we put out a readout, I believe, of or if not, it will be coming soon. But today, Jake Sullivan spoke with Yuri Yushakov, I'm sure I'm butchering his last name, apologies, foreign policy advisor to President Vladimir Putin of Russia. He indicated U.S. readiness to engage in diplomacy through multiple channels, including bilateral engagement, the NATO-Russia Council, and the OSCE. He made clear that any dialogue must be based on reciprocity and address our concerns about Russia's actions and take place in full coordination with our European allies and partners. That is consistent with our ongoing outreach and engagement with the Russians, with the Ukrainians, with the Europeans as well. That happened through the course of last week. As it relates to NATO membership or joining NATO, as we've said many times, but I'll just reiterate, given I know it was raised through their proposal, the President's view, the administration's view is that the right of sovereign nations to choose their partnerships and alliances is a core principle of European security and has been agreed to and reaffirmed many times over the years. This remains U.S. policy today. I mean, it is we support the aspirations of countries to join NATO and meet specific requirements. NATO's relationship with Ukraine is a matter only for Ukraine and 30 NATO allies to determine.
Thank you. And then on Afghanistan, what's the administration's take on this letter from 46 members of Congress asking the Treasury to unfreeze or ease Afghanistan's access to foreign reserves and to do more to allow financial institutions and aid groups to operate in Afghanistan?
Well, there are a number of reasons why the Afghan reserves remain inaccessible, including first and most immediate, the status of the funds is the subject of ongoing litigation brought by certain victims of 9/11 and other terrorist attacks who hold judgments against the Taliban. And these legal proceedings obviously cannot be disregarded. We also, the second reason is we continue to face difficult fundamental questions about how we might be able to make reserve funds available to directly benefit the people of Afghanistan while ensuring that the funds do not benefit the Taliban. And finally, the Taliban remains sanctioned by the United States as a specially designated global terrorist group. That certainly has not changed, but this is, of course, complicated by the ongoing litigation over those funds. Go ahead. Hello.
Thanks, Jen. Does the president think Senator Manchin
He always thinks of himself as a senator. So there you go. You're not wrong.
Does the president think Senator Manchin has been negotiating in good faith?
He has said that from the beginning. He continues to consider him a friend. And obviously our statement yesterday about the events of the last few weeks, I think, speaks for itself.
The reason I ask is that some progressives are alleging that Manchin was always going to be a no, and in effect bamboozled the White House into believing that he was negotiating in good faith and was going to pull the plug at the end of the process.
Well, look, I know there's a lot of theorizing out there. We certainly understand that. But the fact remains that we only have 50 votes in the Senate. That has not changed. You need all of those members to support legislation moving forward. And I know one of the arguments out there is that we should have waited on the bipartisan infrastructure bill. Look, the president has said from the beginning and continues to believe today and is committed to today to getting both done. Obviously, the infrastructure bill is now law, to getting Build Back Better done. But if the question is whether we should have delayed and not moved forward with replacing lead pipes for millions of communities, of people in communities across the country, we disagree with that. Or if the argument is that we should have waited and delayed replacing broadband, we disagree with that. And if you believe that we should have delayed in putting many union workers to work, creating many good paying union jobs, we disagree with that. We're going to get both done, and we certainly understand there's a lot of theorizing about what happened or what's going to happen moving forward. Go ahead in the middle.
Thanks, Jen. I want to ask you, I'm sorry.
We can do both. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you so much. I want to ask you about that statement that you put out yesterday.
Sure.
Very harsh statement. It's very rare that I see a president through a statement criticizing a member of his own party in the manner in which that statement was written. And I want to ask you as to whether or not you believe that harsh rhetoric coming from the White House, the harsh rhetoric that I've seen coming from fellow Democrats, progressives in particular, may push Senator Manchin out of the Democratic Party.
Senator Manchin has spoken to that, and the president continues to believe that they share a range of values. They share a commitment to helping working people, to helping lower costs for the American people. Our intention yesterday was to provide specific details to the American people about the events of the last few weeks, and our statement followed a statement by Senator Manchin.
The other thing I wanted to ask you about are the comments of Senator Manchin over the course of the past several months. The comments that I've paid a lot of attention to, you have as well, the op-eds that he's written for both the Washington Post and his hometown newspapers, the interviews that he's done with a West Virginia radio host named Poppy Kercheval, all of them, from my perspective, seem to indicate that he was not going to support the Build Back Better bill. And yet your statement indicated utter surprise in terms of the statement that he made on Fox News yesterday. Why were you so surprised?
Well, I think, as my statement very clearly outlined, because there were private conversations and private discussions and commitments made. And so that's why we were surprised. Go ahead in the middle. Sorry. Go ahead.
So given the current state of the pandemic, does the president anticipate giving an in-person State of the Union next year? Or where are you on those conversations?
Nothing has changed about our intentions or our plans, but we don't yet have a date set at this point in time. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. Due to the difficulties around testing, do you think public health officials in the United States are getting a correct picture of how Omicron is spreading today in the country?
That's a very good question. I mean, I would say that, the president, and obviously, as I said in response to Monica's question earlier, you'll hear the president talk tomorrow about his commitment to continuing to expand access to free testing for the American people. We have taken a lot of steps over the last few weeks and months. We've quadrupled our testing capacity over just a few months. But really, I think that's a good question, a very good question that I think you should ask the health and medical experts and team at the next COVID briefing. Go ahead, Shelby.
Thanks, Jen. I wanted to ask a follow-up on the COVID testing.
Sure.
I know you've detailed what the administration is doing already to ease some of these problems, but we're obviously still seeing them across the country. So is there anything new that the administration is considering to ease some of these COVID testing issues? And then more broadly, how are we in a position nearly 2 years into the pandemic where we're still dealing with issues like a lack of access to testing?
Well, I think, Shelby, on the first, we're dealing with a once-in-a-lifetime global pandemic that has been very unpredictable, and I think everybody would acknowledge that. And what we've done on testing is to continue to increase access, make it affordable and accessible. That's important morally. It's important substantively and policy-wise to the president. Obviously, there weren't any COVID tests available or approved by the FDA earlier this year, so now there's 8, and we've taken steps to quadruple our testing capacity over just the last couple of months, and we've also taken steps to make them widely available by sending $50 million to rural health clinics and community health centers, making sure there are 20,000 pharmacy locations across the country. But obviously, with the transmissibility of this variant, we're going to continue to build on that, and that's what I think the American people will hear from him on tomorrow.
Thank you, Jen. I have 2 foreign policy questions.
Sure.
You have seen the review that indicated the killing of 1,300 civilians in the Middle East since 2014 by drones. I know there was successive administration, not just a Biden administration. It gives reasons like flawed intelligence and faulty targeting and little accountability. Since the president signed on these drone attacks, does that mean that the White House is looking into reviewing the decision itself in parallel what the Pentagon is doing? And I have another question.
Yeah, that's a great question. I know the Pentagon is doing a review, as you noted, and I would certainly point you to them. I can certainly talk to our national security team and see if there's anything in addition. Obviously, the Pentagon is part of the administration, as you well know, but I will see if there's anything in addition.
And on Iran, the Iranian said that they're not going back to the talks. Does that mean that economic sanction is inevitable now? Or you still hope that there's another round before the end of the year?
Yeah, another great question, Nadia. I mean, as we've said, because of the way that the Iranians approached and participated in the last round of talks, the president, we did take asked us, the national security team, to be prepared in the event that diplomacy fails, and to take a look at other options. And that has been work that has been ongoing, including in consultation with a range of partners around the world. In terms of what next steps it looks like, I don't think I have anything at this point to preview for you. Go ahead.
Rahm Emanuel was just approved as ambassador to Japan, and following Afghanistan, Japan holds 50,000 American troops, the largest in the world. There's a concern as to the ongoing trust of the security treaty. So can you, a little bit of assurance to the Japanese people that their treaty will be honored? And then also follow up on Afghanistan.
I'm not aware of any planned changes.
And then on the Afghanistan, the situation for the people that worked with us, any progress on bringing them back?
Well, we have put out updates over the course, and I would really point you to the State Department and reiterate that our efforts have continued to bring American citizens out of Afghanistan who wish to depart and have wished to depart since August, as well as our allies and partners. That's why we've been working so closely in coordination and cooperation with the Qataris, but the State Department really oversees that effort, so they would have any up-to-date numbers for you. I can do 1 or 2 more. Why don't go all the way to the back? Go in the middle. Go ahead.
Thank you, Jen. 2 questions, one on politics and one on foreign policy.
Yeah.
Today, 2 Democratic members of the House of Representatives, Representatives Murphy of New Jersey and Murphy of Florida and Sires of New Jersey, both announced their retirement, bringing to 22 the number of Democrats leaving the House for one reason or another. Is this something the president talks about, and does he have an opinion on the exodus of members of his own party?
I have learned my lesson and not talking too much about politics from here. But it is true that there are retirements. That happens typically every cycle. The president, as the leader of the party, obviously, I'm sure will be out there next year. We'll have more to preview on that when it's an appropriate time. But I would note that as it relates to the Democratic agenda and what people are going to be talking about out there, we'd rather be us than them and have an agenda to talk about, and an agenda that is about creating millions of good-paying union jobs, an agenda that's about ensuring we are, lowering the costs of child care, health care, elder care, an agenda to address the climate crisis, and that's what you'll hear people talk about next year. But I'll leave the politics out of the podium.
Turning to Ukraine.
Yeah.
President Zelensky has charged that the wealthiest man in Ukraine, Rinat Akhmatov, is part of a Russian plot to overthrow him. Is the U.S. considering Magnitsky-style targeted sanctions against Mr. Akhmatov?
I don't have anything in terms of considerations of sanctions to preview for you. Obviously, we are considering a range of sanctions as we're looking at the buildup of Russian troops and bellicose rhetoric, but beyond that, I don't have anything to preview. Let's go just Ebony in the middle, and then we'll wrap it up.
Thank you. Just two quick questions. I know that the White House has said in the past that they don't want to go back to a shutdown.
Yep, and we have no intention to.
Okay. Because I was going to ask with the increase in Omicron, are we going to see that? The second question is, this morning, Representative Ocasio-Cortez said that the president hasn't used the full extent of his presidency, kind of echoing what many activists on the ground are saying. What is the response to that in terms of, she was talking about Build Back Better and also voting rights. What's the response to what she said?
I didn't, well, let me say first on your first question was a very good one. I think the reason we're not going back to a shutdown is because we are now at a very different place we were in a year ago, which is important for people. And you hear the president talk about this tomorrow. 200 million Americans are vaccinated now. That is a stark difference from where we were a year ago. You'll hear the president again talk more about that. I did not see the full context of the Congresswoman's comments, but what I would say is that as we look back to the last year, what we know we have accomplished to date is working with her and a number of members is getting the American Rescue Plan done, a step that helped put in place, extend and increase the size of the child tax credit, cutting in half the child poverty in this country, making sure we could keep 99% of schools open in this country. We also passed a bipartisan infrastructure bill, something that, again, will make sure that we're replacing lead pipes across the country, make sure we're expanding access to broadband and creating tens of millions, or not tens of millions, let me remedy that, millions of good-paying union jobs. And we've also vaccinated 200 million Americans. Is there more work to do? Absolutely. Of course there is. We're not even a year into the president's presidency. And voting rights is front and center at the agenda, on the agenda next year. You heard Leader Schumer say that. The president reiterated that, I think, in his speech at South Carolina State, and we'll look forward to continuing to work with the congressman and others to get things done. All right, thanks, everyone. We'll do this again tomorrow. Merry Christmas week.
Might we hear directly from the president about what happened yesterday?
I think you will hear from him on how we're going to get the agenda done.
We take questions.
He takes questions multiple times a week, so depends on what you ask. Depends on what you ask.
All right, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki there taking a number of questions, almost an hour's worth from reporters in the briefing room today. Most of them, though, asking about two topics, the Omicron variant and the case surge nationwide. And the president will be speaking to the American public on that tomorrow. We'll carry those remarks live about what the administration is planning to do to increase rapid testing capacity, to urge more Americans to go out and get vaccinated and go out and get their booster shots. And so also she was taking a number of questions on the back and forth now with Senator Joe Manchin, of course, saying yesterday on Fox News Sunday with Bret Baier that he will be a definitive no on the Build Back Better Act, sending all of Washington really into a frenzy, and many in his own party as well, especially members of the Progressive Caucus who have been speaking out quite vehemently against him today, and Manchin's own aides and defenders saying that the statement the White House put out was quite incivil. I believe that was one word that was used, uncivil. And so right now we do have some more news from the White House we want to get to, because earlier today it was put out by Jen Psaki that a staff member close to the president had tested positive, and then the president was tested negative. But they still put out a statement saying that on Monday morning, a mid-level staff member who does not regularly have contact with the president received a positive test result for a COVID-19 test. 3 days earlier, on Friday, that staff member had spent approximately 30 minutes in proximity to the president on Air Force One on the way back from South Carolina to Philadelphia. The staff member is fully vaccinated and boosted and tested negative prior to boarding Air Force One, as is required for everyone traveling with the president, though the staff member did not begin to experience symptoms until Sunday and was tested this morning and tested positive. So we did learn from the White House, though, that after all of this, President Biden did, in fact, test negative. In the meantime, a lot of news on the pet front in the White House. We were learning earlier today that President Biden and the First Lady have gotten a new puppy at the White House. We have a picture to put up here. You can see. Welcome to the White House, Commander. And of course, we're learning that Commander is a purebred German Shepherd. He arrived this afternoon at the White House and was a birthday gift from the president's brother, James, and his sister-in-law, Sarah. Well, the White House put out a video of President Biden welcoming his new furry friend.
Hey, pal. How you doing? How are you?
Okay, but there's also some other pet news as well. Apparently, the first family will be getting a cat. The cat will join the family in January. And of course, their dog, Major. What is happening with Major? Well, after consulting with dog trainers, animal behaviorists, and veterinarians, the first family has decided to follow the experts' collective recommendation that it would be safest for Major to live in a quieter environment with family friends. This is not in reaction to any new or specific incident, but rather a decision reached after several months of deliberation as a family and discussion with experts. So, Major in, Commander out. Just wanted to give you a rundown of all the pet drama going on within the White House. I'm Andrew Kraft. We're going to be moving on to some more other top headlines. We're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, though, as we reported last week, all 17 missionaries are now free from that Haitian gang that kidnapped them back in October. Well, they're back stateside and they're speaking out alongside their Christian ministry. We'll have a press conference on that in just a moment. And welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. I'm Andrew Kraft, and we want to thank you for being with us on your Monday night. Hope you had a great weekend. It's 8 o'clock now, top of the hour here, Mountain Time in Phoenix, Arizona. 10 o'clock now on the East Coast, and we want to bring you a story we have been following from the very beginning. Of course, those 17 American missionaries, one of them Canadian, well, they were kidnapped in Haiti back in October. Now all of them are freed. Remember, some of them had been freed over the course of their captivity, 2 at one point in time, 3 at another, but now the remaining 12 have been freed, and their ministry is speaking out today about the ordeal that they went through. We're going to hear from Fox News correspondent Brian Yennis on these updates, and then hear from the ministry themselves. They held a press conference. But first, Brian Yennis.
A message to the kidnappers. You cost our hostages and their families a lot of suffering.
A Christian missionary group is now speaking out after a dozen of their members were held hostage in Haiti for months by the 400 Mawazo gang. The 17 members were in Haiti rebuilding houses and roads before they were kidnapped back in October by the dangerous gang. Last week, they orchestrated their escape, breaking out of a blocked door before slipping past guards. The missionaries then hiked for several miles before finding someone who helped them call for aid.
One of the hostages said, and I quote, 2 hours were through fierce brambles. We were in gang territory the whole hike. They weren't sure where to go. They stopped. And what do you think they did? They prayed.
5 other hostages had been freed separately in November following the kidnapping. The leader of the gang threatened to kill all of the hostages unless they received $17 million, or $1 million per hostage. Despite the scary ordeal, the head of the Christian Aid Ministries extended forgiveness to the kidnappers.
We know that our hostages told you very clearly how you can also be forgiven by God if you repent.
The White House also chimed in, thanking federal and Haitian officials for their role in the safe return of the hostages to the U.S. and Canada.
We are thankful for the FBI, the State Department, and Haitian law enforcement officials who have been working tirelessly to get these missionaries safely home.
All of the rescued hostages are in good health, and the missionary group says they will continue to serve in Haiti. In New York, Brian Yennis, Fox News.
Brian, thanks for that update there. But this is really, really great news, especially ahead of Christmas, that they are now back safe and sound. We're going to hear from leaders of the Christian Aid Ministry. It's based in Ohio, as they recounted what these missionaries went through for over 2 months as they were held in captivity by that Haitian gang there. So we're going to play a little bit of this out from earlier today.
In the precious name of Jesus, we thank you that you have given us a beautiful day. We thank you that you are God. You have created us and everyone else and all things. And we know that you are all-powerful, you're all-knowing, and you are here with us through your Holy Spirit. We thank you, Father, for your plan of salvation through which all of us can come to you, have our sins forgiven because of the sacrifice on the cross that Jesus made there. If we claim this promise and if we surrender our lives to you. We thank you this morning so very much for the release of the hostages, and pray that you would be with them and their families as they readjust to normal life. We also think of others that are still hostages in Haiti and in other parts of the world. Pray that you would be with them and give them grace for the day. So just be in our midst, guide and direct us, and help us to honor and glorify you. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, I'll make a few remarks and then turn the time over to Weston Showalter, which I think quite a few know already. He is Christian Aid Ministries' chief spokesman. We will present info to the best of our ability, but will not be taking questions today pertaining to the case. As the banner behind me indicates, and as we all know by now, since last Thursday, December 16, all 17 members of Christian Aid Ministries who were held hostage in Haiti by the 400 Mawoso gang have been set free. This gives us much joy and great thankfulness to God. Thank you for your prayers to that end. During this 2-month ordeal, a scripture that brought me comfort and consolation is one found in the Gospel of St. John, chapter 4, verse 36, and I quote, "If the Son therefore shall make you free, you shall be free indeed." I thought of that a lot. Whether one is physically free or a hostage in captivity or in prison somewhere, he or she can nevertheless be spiritually free if one is a child of God. And that blessed me. All of the hostages seem to be doing reasonably well. In fact, I think we can honestly say that with gratitude. Their faith, their families, and their strong church communities, which rallied around them, helped them to come out of this ordeal as well as they did, I believe. I wanted this time to acknowledge the pain and suffering of families whose loved ones still languish in Haiti, in captivity as hostages, as well as in other countries. We now understand a little better their pain and want to pray more faithfully with them for their release in the future. All of us at Christian Aid Ministries would like to express profound thanks to many people, but first to Almighty God. He alone is worthy of honor. As it is stated in the book of Revelation, chapter 4, verse 11, "You are worthy, O Lord, to receive glory and honor and power, for you created all things, and by your will they exist and were created." And as I mentioned in last Friday's public update, we also want to thank the following people: the families of the hostages, who were so gracious, patient, and easy to work with during this difficult time in their lives. Even though coming from a number of different states and churches, different families, thousands of miles apart, they stuck together and encouraged each other during this time. The office here and the families held conference calls twice each weekday during the 2-month period, talking, praying, listening to songs of encouragement sent by well-wishers. This seemed to be a lifeline for them, and I think for us as well. Their trust in God was remarkable and a challenge to all of us. We say thank you to the multitudes of people worldwide who prayed, who cared, who wept, and who sent hundreds, if not thousands, of notes of encouragement to the families of the hostages. They came here and we shared them with the families. This was a great blessing. Only God can repay you for the blessing you all were during this time. We thank the U.S. government and all others who assisted in the safe release of our hostages. We thank the news media, maybe not something that you are used to hearing. We appreciate your patience and understanding of the fact that we could not share a lot of information during this ordeal. But you helped us spread the news of this difficult situation all over the world. Intended or not, this resulted in large numbers of prayers by many of God's people in many countries coming in here, which again we shared with the families. There is power in prayer. We thank our supporters. You make our work in Haiti and in many other countries possible. It is because of God and you that together we can be the hands and feet of Jesus, to help care for widows and orphans, to feed the hungry, clothe the naked, minister to the sick, and bring the wonderful message of the gospel of Jesus Christ to as many people as possible. Thank you for your many words of encouragement and comfort during these past 2 difficult months. To all staff members, some are sitting over here, and associates of Christian Aid Ministries here at the home office and around the world, thank you for continuing to faithfully carry out your duties and responsibilities during these times of stress, and for doing many things behind the scenes to encourage the Haiti crisis team and to make the load more bearable and to keep things going otherwise as well. A message to the kidnappers. You cost our hostages and their families a lot of suffering. However, Jesus taught us by word and by his own example that the power of forgiving love is stronger than the hate of violent force. As Jesus himself was being crucified on the cross, he prayed, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." That's found in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 23, verse 34. As his children, we cannot otherwise but extend forgiveness to you, talking to the kidnappers again. We know that our hostages told you very clearly how you can also be forgiven by God if you repent. Our sincere desire is that you, the kidnappers, and all who hear or read this statement may come to the saving knowledge of Jesus Christ, our Savior. Jesus died for everyone so that everyone has the opportunity to be saved. The beloved verse in John 3:16 says, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him should not perish but have everlasting life." From day one, the kidnappers demanded money to release the hostages. As you might expect, the taking of our workers, including women and children, pushed us to our knees as we sought God's direction. Recognizing the lives at stake and having a desire for a nonviolent resolution, we grappled for many hours over the proper course of action. Many intense hours, I might say. Other people who sought to help us provided funds to pay a ransom and allowed the negotiation process to continue. As you can imagine, we are not able to say anything further in respect to these negotiations. You can ask, but we can't say. However, after many days of waiting and no action on the part of the kidnappers, God worked in a miraculous way to enable the hostages to escape. And you will hear more of that. Weston will be explaining more about how that happened. I'd like to address some questions that have come to us during this time. What were these people doing in a country like Haiti? Our workers were not on a short-term mission trip, as many people have perceived. Most of them were there on multi-year commitments. They went to Haiti knowing that their work would involve risks. Christian Aid Ministries operates various programs in Haiti which minister to physical and spiritual needs and has been on the ground in Haiti for 30 years. These people, the former hostages and our other staff, were there to enable thousands of poor children, often in remote parts of Haiti, go to school. They were there to provide help and hope to widows, the elderly, and the handicapped, to deliver medicines and nutritional products for malnourished children to clinics all over the country, to provide teaching for pastors, supply Bibles, Bible story books, and other Christian literature. These people were in Haiti to oversee the rebuilding of homes destroyed or damaged by the recent earthquake. Not quite sure when that was anymore, August or so maybe. They organized our Work for Wages program, which includes projects such as road building and installing water systems. These projects give unemployment people an opportunity to do meaningful work to support their families while at the same time providing crucial information to needy communities. Another question, didn't our people know it is dangerous in Haiti? Yes, they did know that, but we go to dangerous places in many parts of the world. That's what Christian Aid Ministries has been doing for decades. If we'd only go where it's safe, we'd stay at home in our own communities. We do, though, try to take proper security precautions, and this event has given us an increased awareness of the need to strengthen our safety protocols and better instruct our people about the dangers involved. Will Christian Aid Ministries be going back to Haiti? While the present conditions in Haiti make it very difficult to operate there, we do not want to abandon the Haitian people in what is perhaps their greatest hour of need. There will be a pause, no doubt. We will be seeking direction from God and counsel from others to help us chart the course for the future. The Haitian people have resiliently responded to crisis after crisis, and our sincere hope is that their country would one day flourish, both economically and spiritually. We are so very thankful that the hostages are free, but we realize their journey back to normal life has only begun. They and their families will need your continued prayers, support, and encouragement. We respectfully ask the news media, friends, acquaintances, and all others to kindly allow the freed hostages and their families the space and privacy they will undoubtedly need as they recover from their ordeal and resume their lives. Again, we thank God and all involved in gaining the safe release of our friends. Thank you and God bless you. And I will now turn the time over to Weston Showalter.
Good morning to each of you. Thank you for coming, and thank you for your interest in the story of what took place in Haiti. Before I get into the storyline of how the kidnapping took place and some of the experiences that the hostages had, it would only be fair to you to introduce you to the hostages through some pictures of them. They are a very resilient group that has faced a lot through the past number of weeks, but it hasn't been easy for them, but they strongly emphasize that God has been faithful in carrying them through. So I have some pictures here that I would like to share with you on the screen there in the corner of the hostages. All right, the picture you're seeing here is a picture of all 17 of the hostages reunited in Florida. That picture was taken on Saturday, December 18, just a few days ago. And if you count the people, you'll notice that there are 18, and the reason for that is it includes the father of the one family that was held, but he himself was not held as a hostage. And he's the man in the far back right corner. This is the first two hostages that were freed on Saturday, November 20. This is the arrival of the final group of 12 hostages when they were meeting our staff there in Haiti to return. This was on Thursday, December 16. This is 15 of the hostages before leaving Haiti. Again, this picture was taken on December 16. This includes the 12 that were delivered, as well as 3 more that had come out prior. This is the 3-year-old hostage, and that photo was taken on Saturday, December 18. It was in mingling with the former hostages and their families. It was so delightful to see the children playing, looking at books. It was just a wonderful blessing. This is the 10-month-old hostage, and there again, that photo was taken on Saturday, December 18. We praise God for the way that He made a way for these people to receive some level of care. As you can see, that the children seem to be doing relatively well, considering what they experienced. This is a photo of one of the hostages being reunited with his brothers, and this photo was taken on Saturday, December 18. By the end of the day, I'm thinking maybe it's tomorrow, all of them will have returned back to their families, as far as I know. Most of them actually have already been reunited with their families in their home communities. Also, I have something else to share with you that I consider very special. In meeting with the hostages just a few days ago, they continued to sing. That was something, and I'll explain that later, that they did a lot in their time of captivity. They sang and sang and sang, and they were still singing on this side when they arrived here stateside. And I have video footage of the group singing a song that has been very special to them throughout their time in captivity, and that is "The Angel of the Lord which is taken from Psalm 34.
The angel of the Lord encampeth round about them that fear him, and delivereth them. The angel of the Lord encampeth round about them that fear him, and delivereth them. Oh, taste and see that the Lord is good. Blessed is the man that trusteth in him. Oh, taste and see that the Lord is good.
And there you have it, these missionaries that had to spend 2 months in captivity under a Haitian gang, now all fully released. There were 16 Americans, 1 Canadian, and they are back home stateside. And so we just wanted to play out some of that press conference from Christian Aid Ministry. They send out these groups to do certain projects in the developing world like Haiti, and they said they will be back there as well. They're not going to let this kidnapping situation deter their mission. And so we heard from them. They were just singing there, and such good news, especially ahead of the Christmas holiday. We're going to take just a quick 2-minute commercial break. When we come back, we're going to be monitoring. We just got this shot out of San Jose, California, and just bear with us because it's really spotty at the moment from one of our choppers overhead. We're getting reports of a mall shooting at the moment there in San Jose, California. So we know that shot is completely frozen. I do want to put up, though, a tweet from the mayor of San Jose, Sam Liccardo. He says that the Oak Ridge shooting does not appear to involve an active shooter. There is 1 injured victim, but the shooting has not continued. According to the latest report, many San Jose PD are on the scene and are working quickly to ensure everyone's safety. So right now, that's all we know. 1 person has been injured in this shooting at the Oak Ridge Mall in San Jose, California. We also have a tweet from San Jose Police I think we can bring up as well here. They're tweeting this about an hour ago, saying that units are currently at Oak Ridge Mall on reports of a person shot. Officers are working their way into the mall. I think that's how it should have said. Shelter in place if you can, they say. Updates here when available. We have just another shot, and this keeps going in and out. You can see the logo for Target there. A lot of police on the scene. If we get any more updates, we'll bring them to you here on Live Now from Fox. When we come back, though, we're going to be listening to one of the Bay Area's most famous politicians. Of course, Speaker Pelosi was there, meeting with Mayor London Breed of San Francisco, talking about a whole host of issues. So we'll come back to this if we get any more details, but for now, let's go to commercial. We'll see you in a moment. Welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. We are continuing to follow this mall shooting that was reported in the San Jose area. That's one of our reporters there in the Bay Area for Fox 2. So we got a little more video of the scene. Of course, those aerial pictures pausing in and out. So we are going to stay on top of this story. What we know so far, one person injured in this shooting. We heard from San Jose Mayor Liccardo saying that this is not an active shooter situation, thankfully, but hopefully there'll be some type of press conference a little bit later. It's almost 7:30 there on the West Coast in California. So once we know more, we'll stay on top of this. But for now, we're going to keep it in the Bay Area for now because Speaker Pelosi was in her home district, San Francisco, today, holding an event with San Francisco Mayor London Breed, talking about the infrastructure bill that was just passed and signed into law, as well as what the leader of San Francisco, Mayor Breed, is doing to crack down on crime and open drug use in the streets of San Francisco. Here's that press conference from earlier.
Good morning, everyone. Here we are. Some of you have been with us. This is our 5th Building the Infrastructure of America event for our country. Democrats deliver today safe streets and roads for all. Some of you were with us when we began this series of just a few weeks ago at the Joe Mazzola Training Center, where we saw apprenticeships in action, kids learning how to weld so that they could repair and build water systems, which were very much a part of the infrastructure legislation, the bipartisan infrastructure framework. Following that, some of us were together at the Trans Bay Terminal, where we all came together to salute what was happening in that legislation for transportation in the Bay Area. $5 billion to come right here for transit, whether it's electrification, for transportation, Caltrains, or other aspects. Next, we had a town hall, which was participated in by thousands of people from the Bay Area to talk about, with Jared Hoffman, what was happening in the legislation to save our planet as we improved the quality of life, created jobs, lowered cost in the legislation. And today, we have our 5th event. This one is a matter of life and death. This one is so important to us, and this one takes place on a day where across America we'll probably add up to about 500 events, including the ones that I mentioned, to come to the community, thank people for their ideas, to share with them opportunities that will be there as we build back better. This is an initiative that is the vision of President Joe Biden. President Biden has said, I want to do everything I can in a bipartisan way to build the infrastructure of our country, but I will not confine my vision for the country to that. And so we're working on the BBB, the Build Back Better legislation, to be more transformative as we go forward to save the planet, to lower cost for health care, for prescription drugs, lower cost for child care, lower cost in every way, lower taxes for the middle class, again, doing so paid for by making people who are wealthy and corporate America to pay their fair share. So that is the context in which all of this is taking place today. So it's an honor to be in San Francisco. We'll be joined shortly by our mayor, and I want to salute her for all of her initiatives. Oh, we are.
Hey, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Mayor, for honoring us with your presence, more importantly, for honoring our city with your service and leadership, and for the priority you have placed on the safety of the people of San Francisco, which is a very major responsibility for us. Your Vision Zero, a bold plan to end traffic fatalities by 2024, as well as your leadership just last week with a proposal to invest $400 million in muni reliability and street safety. I salute you for that, and I know you join me in saluting our Bay Area colleagues who are here, who are going to be making their presentations. Jody Medeiros, Executive Director of Walk San Francisco, Janice Lee, Advocate Director for San Francisco Bicycle Coalition, and we'll be hearing by our, I know you will agree, our VIP today is Julie Nicholson, who survived a terrible traffic injury on our streets here in San Francisco, and whose extraordinary courage and resilience inspire us all. And she will be speaking and representing the voices of so many of those who are here, Families for Safe Streets. Thank you all for being here, for sharing your tragedies, but also giving us your courage to turn your pain into progress and help to prevent other families from suffering the agony that you have. And we even have some other survivors of crashes as well. So we'll be hearing from them. But first, as I gave you, put us in context of what this is, a drumbeat across America to make sure this happens. I'll talk to you now a little bit before I then have the privilege of yielding, not only yielding, but praising our mayor once again. Here's what this is about, Madam Mayor and all. The Bay Area has long seen more of its fair share of heartbreaking traffic deaths. You all are here as eloquent testimony to that. While COVID thinned traffic considerably, remember that? It was thin. We saw 462 traffic fatalities in 2020, just 30 fewer than 2019. Less traffic, just 30 fewer fatalities. Nationally, last year marked the most traffic deaths since 2007, and fatalities have been sharply on the rise for a decade. These incidents are more than just statistics, as we know. They are families shattered by the tragedy, communities in mourning, and a demand for urgent action. That is why our historic bipartisan infrastructure law, Democrats are advancing the promise of safe streets and roads for all. We secured $14 billion nationally for roadway safety, which will help make California's streets safer and friendlier. $262 million from the Highway Safety Improvement Program is headed to California this year to help reduce fatalities and injuries on our roads. This will help design complete streets which provide safe and accessible transport options for people of all ages and abilities. With the new $5 billion Safe Streets for All initiatives, our city can compete for funding for Vision Zero, Madam Mayor, particularly for our high injury network. Just 13% of roads account for 75% of severe and fatal accidents. With new funding to modernize our data collection, we'll get a clearer picture of where and how our crashes occur. And with $7.2 billion for transportation alternatives nationally, we'll improve safety of sidewalks, bike lanes. Just got a tour in terms of what it means for bike lanes and trails. So I just want to tell you that this is a very major, never seen before investment. There are many initiatives to create good paying jobs for the Bay Area workers, rebuilding middle class as we rebuild communities. It will be transformative, safe system approach, so safety is built in from the start. And I know that's what's happening right here on Folsom and Second. With this historic achievement, Democrats are delivering for the people in the Bay Area and beyond. I was now at this point supposed to be introducing Julie Nicholson, but Julie, instead we're just going to hear first from our distinguished mayor, and we thank her for making safety a priority for the people of San Francisco, whether it's safety on the streets, safety in terms of their health care, safety in terms of diminishing drug use, and more people have died of drug use and COVID here. I mean, and the mayor is taking the bull by the horns with that, as well as fighting retail crimes and all. Safety is the first responsibility of government. It's what the oath we take to protect and defend, whether it's the Constitution or the people. Our mayor has been a champion in living up to that important priority for the community, for the people, for the children, our Mayor, London Breed.
Madam Speaker, thank you so much for being here today and for always taking care of not just the city that you represent and love, but also this entire country. We appreciate both large and small things that you continue to do to pay very close attention of the challenges that continue to persist. And thank you so much, Julie, for allowing me the opportunity to speak at this time because I want to be clear about what San Francisco plans to continue to do. This vision of making sure that we have 0 fatalities on our streets as a result of the high injury corridor networks is very important. And part of the importance is not just a plan that was developed by a number of people that you see here today, including Jody from Walk SF and others. It was really about a demand from the people of San Francisco to see change in these particular areas. So many collisions that could be avoided. This city many, many years ago really focused on building for speed, for access from the west side of town to the east side of town. Homes were bulldozed in my community of the Fillmore to make way for Gary Boulevard, which is in essence a freeway in the middle of our city. And we have had to make some significant changes. And as Speaker Pelosi has said, 13% of the locations that are the high injury network represent 75% of the number of collisions that have occurred in the street, causing major injury and death. This infrastructure bill is so important because here in San Francisco, we are so very fortunate that the people of this city care about making improvements to our city. And just last week, I introduced a transportation and safety bond that's going to help to continue great work that we're doing, like high injury corridors here on 2nd and Folsom and other places throughout San Francisco. And we will aggressively continue the work. But local dollars alone are not enough. And we need help. And this infrastructure bill will not only help San Francisco, it will help this entire country so that we can improve safety on our streets, especially in major dense cities like San Francisco, where you've seen a significant increase in the number of people who are walking and biking. And I'm really proud that this city has taken steps since I've been mayor to produce 20 new miles of protected bike lanes, as well as daylighting and changes to our lights so that we prioritize safety over speed, so that we change how people move around the city so people know exactly where they belong on the streets when we're trying to get people from point A to point B. And as Madam Speaker put it, our responsibility as leaders is to keep people safe. And part of keeping people safe is making investments. And sometimes those changes in the removal of parking and other things make people upset or uncomfortable. But at the end of the day, if it's going to save someone's life, it's a small sacrifice to make. And so I'm grateful to be here with our speaker, who's been an extraordinary leader with Walk SF and the Bicycle Coalition, and so many advocates who have been impacted by tragedy where they've lost loved ones, where sadly they've experienced it personally themselves. And my hope is that we don't continue to go down this path. And that's why these investments and the work that we need to do in San Francisco is so important. And so at this time, I'd like to yield the floor back to our special guest, Julie. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mayor Breed and Madam Speaker. What an incredible honor it is to be here today. I'm Julie Nicholson. I'm a member of the Families for Safe Streets community. You can see behind me. I'm also a professor of early childhood, and I'm a mother of 3 wonderful girls. Almost 2 years ago, January 4th, 2020, I was out doing my favorite form of self-care. I was jogging in the Panhandle. I was celebrating getting to the end of my husband's final chemo treatment when a driver who was speeding ran through a red light, ricocheted off of a car making an illegal left turn, came into the park and hit me, throwing me 20 feet and leaving me with a broken back and broken neck. It took me 8 months of therapy and healing, but here I am. I'm fortunate. Thank you. Going through that experience really opened my eyes to the preventable health crisis of traffic violence. This is a preventable health crisis that is getting worse, not better. It's a preventable health crisis that impacts not just me, but all of us. And here's the thing that's amazing. It's a preventable health crisis that has proven solutions. I'm standing up here feeling so thankful, so grateful, and overwhelmed as a traffic survivor, violent survivor. And I also feel so grateful to our federal leaders for the infrastructure bill that is going to bring attention and action to bring safer streets. We have trauma all across this country from those who are being hurt by traffic violence, but I'm here to say thank you to Madam Speaker, to Representative Desaulniers. On behalf of Families for Safe Streets and our community, I want to say thank you for the infrastructure bill, for the action you're taking to make our streets safer. It means so much to me. It means so much to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It says so much when we talk about what Julie described, the eloquence of your statement and speaking for Families for Safe Streets, the tragedy that they underwent. And one of them said to me, this isn't about an accident. Some of this is a decision on the part of somebody to run a red light and speed and the rest of that. So we have to be prepared in every possible way. And yes, sometimes it's an accident, but not always. And a person who knows that very well is Jeffrey Tumlin, who's the director of San Francisco Municipal Transportation Area. Thank you so much. Where's Jeffrey? Thank you, Jeffrey. Let's hear for Jeffrey for keeping San Francisco moving and in a way that is safe for bicyclists, pedestrians, for people in cars and the rest. And during the Q&A, he'll take all the hard questions because he tells us a beautiful story about what's happening at 2nd and Folsom. But now it's my honor to introduce Representative Desaulniers, who is a member of the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee of the Congress of the United States. He brought to that committee his experience as a local official, as a member of the state legislature. This is if. So in any case, Mark Desaulniers. Mark Desaulniers.
I hope he's not one of my constituents. I really want to thank all of you for being here. I want to thank the speaker for her tenacity and vision, as I did at the last one I was able to attend. I want to thank the mayor for her vision and tenacity in a very, very difficult position, but she's inspiring, as is the speaker. And Julie, thank you so much for your career, your vocation, and your heartfelt story about your experience, and to all of you, as the speaker said, through your experiencing, you're helping save lives. And I do want to thank somebody who, as a staff person who helped mentor me, this probably won't appreciate me calling her out, but Kate Breen, she's shaking her head, who we used to serve together when I was an MTC commissioner, and she was a wonderful staff person, and now she is working with San Francisco to make sure these projects are done. So this is really a vision in its time, as the mayor said, and as the speaker has done so with her usual tenacity, for the federal government to re-engage in this infrastructure, to re-engage in a way that we historically did when I started in transportation, longer than I would like to admit, where the federal government, the model was almost 75% from the federal government, 25% local and state. And here in San Francisco and the region, representing an East Bay district and representing Contra Costa County, where we have passed super majority self-help sales tax to invest, where the state has done that, where the mayor just mentioned she's doing it again. So now the federal government is back, thanks to our leadership. And this whole systems management not only will save lives, but will help everyone's quality of life. For every single occupancy vehicle that you take off the road and put somebody on a bike or walking, it saves the environment. It's a multiplier of 10 on climate and traditional pollutants, and it creates safety, and it reduces congestion. To my constituents in the suburbs, when they ask me about this, I say every time we take one of us out of a car and put them on transit and bikes like Copenhagen and Amsterdam and Munich, where 50% of the peak trips are by bike, we start to reduce congestion. Along with telecommuting and tele-errands, this is how we address our transportation challenges here in the Bay Area. And what happens in the Bay Area and what happens in California, as Jimmy Carter said, happens in the rest of the United States. So what we're doing here today not just saves lives here, not just saves lives in the region, not just saves lives in California, will save lives all over the United States. So thank you so much for your vision, your tenacity, and your heartfelt advocacy.
Thank you. As we always say on these infrastructure and transportation issues, they're a health issue, clean air for our children. They're a safety issue in terms of what we're talking about here today. They're a jobs issue, and the jobs that are created to do all of this, they are a quality of life issue by getting more cars off the roads and more people safely making their own choices about walking or bicycling and the rest. So much is served by all of this. And here to talk about Walk San Francisco, its executive director, Jody Medeiros. I referenced her in my remarks. I want to salute her leadership and all with whom she works in Walk San Francisco. Jody Medeiros.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Jody Medeiros, and I'm the executive director of Walk San Francisco. Before I begin, I do want to take a moment of silence for the 25 people we have lost this year alone in San Francisco to traffic violence. In the past month, we lost Dharam Qatar. He moved to San Francisco in 2011 to be closer to his grandkids and made this city his home. He loved walking. He was walking home after working the night shift as a security guard and was hit and killed in the Bayview neighborhood. We also lost Andrew Zeman. Andrew was a paraprofessional who worked at the elementary school that he attended as a child. The school kids used to call him Mr. Andrew. He was hit and killed right outside of the school on November 10th. He was only 30 years old. And only one block from here, where we stand, Antonio Durano was hit and killed in April this year. Antonio, like so many others, was simply trying to cross the street. Standing with me today, as you have all heard from Julie and so many of the members of San Francisco Bay Area Families for Safe Streets, these are people who have suffered incomprehensible loss of a child from traffic crashes. Steve, Gina, and Joe, we're here for you today. Others standing with me, Supervisor Yee, Julie, Nancy, John Alex, they've survived being severely injured in a crash. Survivors have lost careers, their independence, and mobility from traffic crashes. And these brave people are here because they don't want anyone else to suffer the way that they have. And I stand with them to demand that the changes to our streets prevent more tragedies. Mayor Breed, we are very lucky, has been standing with us as well on these issues and has been a true visionary for safe streets. And it is deeply meaningful for us today to be here in San Francisco with Madam Speaker, as well as Representative DeSaulnier. Thank you for being here. Because for so long, federal policy and federal dollars have been focused around making it easy for cars to get around. And the speed of vehicles has been the priority, but this bill does change that. The thing that I think about is, what if every day a mid-size airplane fell from the sky? That is the equivalent of what we are encountering right now in our country. And it's spread over countless towns and cities, and people and communities are suffering from unsafe streets. This new infrastructure bill is a turning point for truly facing the crisis we have in our cities. And we're sending a very clear message that the country's approach to traffic safety must change because crashes are preventable. And it's backing it up with proven solutions and funding so we can change this. Vision Zero and Complete Streets projects work. We know that from countless cities across the country who are making those changes, and here we are doing that right here in San Francisco. Walk San Francisco, along with our advocates, San Francisco Bicycle Coalition, Families for Safe Streets, together with our city's mayor, London Breed, and our city's agencies, are pushing hard to make San Francisco the beacon for other cities. We're really trying to show what we can do when safety is the #1 priority. And trying to cross the street is no longer a life or death situation. This infrastructure bill is focused on safety. That is incredible. This might be the first time in our city's history that a federal agency is thinking about safety first. And as Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg said, we cannot and should not accept these fatalities as simply a part of everyday life in America. At Walk San Francisco, we don't, and we don't want you to either. Thank you again, Speaker Pelosi and Representatives DeSaulnier, for standing with us today, Madam Mayor Breed, for taking real action, fundamentally change this country's approach to traffic safety. Thank you so much.
Now we hear from Janice Lee, an Advocacy Director of San Francisco Bicycle Coalition. Thank you for being with us, Janice. I yield the floor to you.
Good morning. My name is Janice Lee, and I'm proud to be here representing the San Francisco Bicycle Coalition today. I want to extend my deep gratitude to Madam Speaker and Representative DeSaulnier for your tireless leadership in DC, fighting for equity for Bay Area residents. That's right. The Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act means equity for San Franciscans right here in the south of Market. It means equity because this infrastructure bill is going to bring much needed investments to streets that have been historically designed to be dangerous. Just take a look at where we are right here, where we're standing. Folsom and Howard Streets were never designed with people biking, walking, or taking transit in mind. Previously, these were de facto highways cutting through one of San Francisco's densest neighborhoods, and the results were deadly. Amelie DeMulak, Tess Rothstein, Russell Franklin, Kate Slattery, Harold Swaggart. The names of bicyclists hit and killed while biking on these two streets won't stop until investments are made. And of course, as Jody mentioned, I cannot forget Antonio Durano, the 78-year-old senior who was crossing the street at Folsom and 3rd just a block away from here this past April. Mr. Durano was hit and killed by a speeding driver just around the corner from the senior affordable housing he lived in. He was a well-known and beloved member in the Filipino community. It's people like Mr. Durano whose lives are cut short when we don't have the funds to upgrade our infrastructure to the modern day. This needs to stop, and we need to fund shovel-ready projects now to bring equitable investments to save lives on our streets. Thanks to state and federal funding, we're seeing some of the fruits of the early implementation here, but Folsom and Howard Streets are soon going to be overhauled with new bus boarding islands and transit priority traffic signals, better lighting, and safer intersections for pedestrians, and a protected two-way bike lane for the hundreds and hundreds of people biking here every day. Lastly, I want to say thank you to you, Mayor Breed. You mentioned this. We are celebrating protected bike lanes on this section of Folsom and Howard early because of your visionary leadership to push the city to build 20 miles of protected bike lanes in just 2 years. And thanks to Jeffrey Tumlin and the leadership at SFMTA, The city actually achieved that earlier this year. So in closing, on behalf of the San Francisco Bicycle Coalition, we want to thank our congressional delegation for prioritizing street safety here today, because truly our lives depend on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Janice, very much. Thank you for acknowledging Norman. Thank you for being with us. I didn't recognize you with the mask. With the mask. No, thank you for being with us. One of the points of many fine points the mayor made was about highways coming through areas and the rest, roads coming through areas, dividing communities. I think it's really important to salute President Biden for making equity, fairness, justice in construction so much a part of what he is doing. Not to divide neighborhoods, but to unite them, to undo some past injustices of dividing neighborhoods and the rest. So this justice piece of it is like a 40% justice initiative within all of his initiatives about building back better. With that, any questions you may have, we'd like to start on this subject. Excuse me. Well, we never give up. I wrote a letter to my colleagues yesterday saying, first and foremost, we will continue to fight to pass the legislation. The Democratic leader of the Senate, Chuck Schumer, wrote a similar letter to his colleagues yesterday. This will happen, it must happen, and we will do it as soon as we can. There are conversations that are ongoing, but we cannot walk away from this commitment. The Build Back Better is about transforming our society. Build back better with women in the workplace. Build back better with workforce development for young people, newer people reaching into our communities with all the diversity that is there. We will not let this opportunity pass, and we will make that case. And I have confidence that Senator Manchin cares about our country, and that at some point, very soon, we can take up the legislation. I'm not deterred at all. Anybody want to add to that? Mr. DeSaulnier, did you?
Amen.
Okay, Speaker Pelosi saying that she is not deterred about Build Back Better. She got some questions about the news with Senator Joe Manchin over the weekend, saying that he is a no on Build Back Better. And so, of course, what will be the fate of that legislation going into 2022? In the meantime, though, we do want to break away from this. We've showed you a majority of that. Speaker Pelosi meeting with the San Francisco mayor, London Breed, today to talk about how to better keep the streets there safe. Also, remember, just last week, Mayor Breed in San Francisco announcing a state of emergency in certain pockets of the city, trying to crack down on crime, being more forceful as ever than we've heard from her in the past. But of course, speaking of crime, right now, we do have a live picture outside of this mall in San Jose, California, in the Bay Area, where we got reports that one person was shot and injured. We're awaiting a police press conference. Hopefully, we're just going to keep this shot up at the moment. You can see still a very active scene on the ground. It's almost 8 o'clock there. We were also listening in to, or hearing from the San Jose mayor, Liccardo, tweeting that thankfully it's not an active shooter situation. And he confirmed that there is indeed one injured victim. And of course, he says many San Jose PD are on the scene and are working quickly to ensure everyone's safety. Earlier, though, the San Jose Police Department, when this was all unfolding, tweeted this right here. We have this tweet. Let's put this up. Units are currently at, this is Oak Ridge Mall, on reports of a person shot. Officers are working their way into the mall. Shelter in place if you can. So that was their message to any shoppers who might still be in the mall at the time of the reported shooting. So right now we just saw an ambulance go by. We just missed that shot. I saw it. So we just saw an ambulance go by. You can see emergency response vehicles camped out here, making their way around the perimeter of the mall. And of course, I know it's obvious to note, but Christmas is just days away. Many people most likely doing last-minute Christmas shopping. And so once police do come to this podium here to give us an update, we'll bring that to you live as it happens. Looks like they just turned the light on. Could indicate that law enforcement may be stepping up to the podium any time now. But thankfully, this is not an active shooter situation. We don't know how many people were in the mall at the time or if there are any other injuries. All we know right now is that one person was shot and injured at the mall itself. So hopefully we'll get a live report from one of our reporters on the ground. Fox 2 KTVU is there on the scene. Let's just listen in to see if they are going to be updating the public very soon here.
Everybody good with sound? Everybody good? No objections? Let me know when you guys are ready. Okay, Sergeant Christian Camarillo, San Jose Police Department, PIO. Today at approximately 5:48 p.m., we received several calls of gunfire here within the mall. Officers arrived quickly after the first initial calls. They quickly formed contact teams. When they entered the mall, they did not hear any shooting. As they're going through the mall, they did find the location where the shooting took place. There is evidence there that a shooting occurred. Right now, we are doing a systematic search of this entire mall. We're trying to get people out of here as quickly as we can, and still trying to, use all our officer safety tactics. There still could be an armed suspect in this mall or a victim. We want to thank some allied agencies that are here helping us do this search, including the Santa Clara County Sheriff's Office. We have the Highway Patrol here as well. And as you can see, there's a lot of first responders here waiting. Hopefully, the worst does not happen and the worst is over with. Right now, we believe this was an isolated incident. By definition, we don't have what we can call an active shooter. It appears it was an altercation between a couple of people here within the mall. One of those suspects produced a handgun and did fire some rounds at this victim, who we still have not located either. Again, a very active scene still. We have a lot of officers here conducting a systematic search. We do know that there's people within the mall still hiding in stores, etc. We're doing everything we can, working with mall management to make sure that they're getting the message that, just hang tight, shelter in place. We are coming to get you out of there, and we will escort you out as soon as we can. The other item, there is a reunification center that we set up just down the street on Blossom Hill Road in the parking lot of the Home Depot. If you have loved ones here and you need to pick them up, that is the place to do it. Talk to the officers at, we have a lot of these streets shut down, so talk to the officers there and they'll get you through to this reunification center. Again, big mall, lots of entrances, lots of exits. This is going to take some time. We fully anticipate being out here for several hours.
Can you talk about the systematic process that you're going through right now to try to find whether there is a suspect or a victim?
Well, we have several elements here of different tactical units within the police department. We're not going to go into the exact tactics that they're using, but they are being careful, going through the mall. We expect to encounter a lot of just innocent people that got caught in this mess, but they also have to be very aware because there could still be an armed suspect somewhere within this mall. We are not going to give the all clear until we've searched every corner of this mall.
Where exactly did it happen?
There's a store within the mall. It's called Forever 21. It happened somewhere in the area of that one store.
Inside?
Inside of the mall. That's correct.
Inside the area, outside of the store, but in the common area where people walk?
Yeah, in the general. And obviously it caused a lot of pandemonium. It's a mall. It's inside. Gunfire is going to sound very loud. It was a very, very chaotic scene for the first arriving officers.
I know that there's reports of a shooting. Is there evidence that someone was actually hit? Like, is there blood all over?
I don't have those details yet. Like I said, we still haven't located a victim.
Got it. Okay.
So we know that some shoppers have been allowed out. Are you guys going from store to store and victim, a suspect? Can you talk about how you're clearing people out?
Again, systematically going store to store, every business that's in the small. I just heard a little while ago that the movie theater was still playing movies. There's people in there that don't even know what's taking place outside of the mall. So, that's another issue we're going to have to deal with. There's still hundreds of people within the small.
Can you talk about your response? This is a really heavy police presence. I've been here for several years, and I have never seen anything like this. Can you talk about how it seems like it was all hands on deck here?
Absolutely. Planning for the worst, hoping for the best. We have a lot of folks here helping us. It's not just our department. Again, our thanks to the allied agencies that are here helping. We have the Santa Clara County Sheriff's Department. We have the Highway Patrol. We have several fire engines here. We have paramedic teams standing by. Right now it is a static situation. There's nothing going on. But again, we still don't know if there's an armed suspect in there, and something can start up again in a second. So we are fully prepared for that. We have a lot of officers deployed within the mall. We have resources here to handle any potential injuries that could occur, right? We don't want that to happen. We hope that the worst has already occurred. But like I said, we are planning for the worst and we're hoping for the best.
So a mall has typically a system of security cameras. Have you guys been able to review that, perhaps see the shooting, perhaps see the direction that people went? Does that give you any indication of...
That's all part of the investigation right now. Officers have viewed some footage. We're not ready to put out exactly what's on that footage yet.
Were there more officers inside the mall because of what happened over the weekend at Macy's?
Yeah, I'm not aware, nor am I sure. As you guys all know, with these organized retail crime incidents, all of the malls are being, a little bit more on alert. There are officers conducting more patrol checks. Like I said, officers arrived here within minutes of the first call and deployed into the mall. There was no lag time. This is something that we train for, that we hope never happens. So far, everything that I'm hearing is our officers responded, very courageously. They don't know what they were going into. This is a crowded mall, a lot of chaos, but they did not hesitate. They went in and did what they had to do.
We were told that the shooter was with a group of people. Have you been able to make contact with those other people? Or...
Again, part of the investigation, we still have not located a suspect.
So how many people are you looking for right now?
We don't know if there's one, if there's two.
Are you looking for the other people that person was with?
Yes, we want to talk to anybody that was involved with this incident, including a victim.
Safe to say that people are on edge right now, not just you guys, but shoppers as well with everything that's been going on.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of incidents that have occurred. We just had an incident here on Saturday night where there was a violent robbery here where a person was beat. That incident got a lot of coverage. We're very aware. However, we still want people to feel safe when they go out. We are responding to these incidents with every available resource we have. You're absolutely right when you said I've never seen this many, units at a call, and we need to be ready. Everyone knows what our staffing issues are here, but when big incidents like this happen, there is no shortage of help, not only from our city, but from the county, from the state. We have the Highway Patrol here, the Sheriff's Office. We are ready to help others just as they are to help us. It's a major incident, and we're doing everything we can to make sure people are safe and we apprehend a suspect if there's still one within the mall.
So just to clarify, you guys will continue to be out here until the entire mall is cleared out?
Yeah, absolutely. We don't want to leave here with the doubt that there still may be somebody there. Our officers, it's going to take a while. It's a big mall. There's, lots of nooks and crannies within this mall, so we are going to do everything we can to check the entire mall before we leave.
But so at this point, nobody is receiving medical treatment, and you believe there is a victim?
We know there was a shooting. We're still looking for a victim. We're still looking for a suspect.
How many shots,
I don't know, Ian.
Is every entrance and every exit covered right now by an officer or deputy?
Yes, there should be officers. We're letting people out as we contact them. Obviously looking for victims as well, make sure nobody's a suspect. But yeah, we are quickly getting them out of here as quickly as we can. Those who we can send to the reunification center, we are sending there. Obviously, schools are out right now. I'm sure there was a lot of, younger people here that got dropped off by parents, etc. We don't have any victims. We don't have anybody that got shot that we've found yet, and we're getting people to the reunification center just as quickly as we can. I know there's a lot of public, asking, hey, how do I get there? I need to pick something up. You go to our Twitter account. We're putting out information there as quickly as we can.
Do we know what type of firearm was used?
I do not know. A handgun.
Was it
this end of the mall is where you're focusing of where it happened?
You know, I'm not super familiar with the layout of this mall. I do know that it happened in the area of the Forever 21 store.
So Christian, the Forever 21 is on that side, but everyone keeps saying it would happen here in the Target area. So that's why I think there's a little bit of confusion.
No, all indications are that it happened near the Forever 21 store. Obviously, you know, it's like the telephone game, right? A lot of people saw what happened, and there's going to be different versions. You know, we will provide the most accurate information that we have.
Do you know how many shots were fired yet?
No.
Do we know what specific ages? If they were in Forever 21, are they a young group?
I don't even know if these folks were in the Forever 21 store. The shooting occurred in the general vicinity of the Forever 21 store. You guys are all familiar with malls. I mean, these stores are literally right next to each other. So, I mean, it was an altercation. We believe it's an isolated incident. There was a shooting. We still have not located a suspect. We still have not located a victim. Pretty good?
Yeah.
All right.
Could I just ask one more question? Just because I'm hearing some people said that the mall was put on lockdown, other people said they ran out. So what was that response? Was the mall on lockdown? Did people leave? How did you get people safety?
Again, a very chaotic scene, right? Our primary focus in an incident like this is to find and locate if there was an active shooter, right? We need to neutralize that threat. And that's what the officers initially did when they, again, responded, arrived, and went into the mall. Again, very dangerous. We have very courageous officers here in our department that went in, no questions asked, right? There's lives that could potentially have been at stake. So kudos to them for going in there. Again, it's a very chaotic, you can imagine thousands of people within the mall. Any other questions?
So what was it placed on lockdown once enough support, enough, you know?
I don't even know if there was an actual lockdown that occurred. What we put out is, hey, if you're in the mall, shelter in place. It's difficult, right? You're not going to be able to close every single exit in a mall. People are going to want to get out. That's a human's natural reaction, right? They hear gunfire, they want to run away. So again, very chaotic. Our officers acted very courageously. Again, we want to thank all the agencies that are here helping us, the first responders that are here, the fire department, the paramedics. Thank goodness we haven't had to deploy any of those resources yet, and we hope it stays that way. Okay? All right, we'll put everything else on Twitter, okay? Thanks.
Okay, so we did not learn much from this police press conference that just wrapped up. If you're just joining us here on Live Now from Fox, we've been tracking reports of a shooting at a mall in the Bay Area in San Jose, California. Let's kind of recap what was said there. And this is the headline. They say they know there was a shooting, but they're still looking for one, a victim, and for two, a suspect. They don't have either. They say it happened somewhere near the Forever 21 store in the mall itself. This is not an active shooter situation. They believe there was an altercation. This is an isolated incident, and that the suspect fired rounds. But we just lost the shot there. The mall is not on lockdown or has been evacuated. You heard from that public information officer from the San Jose Police Department saying that even at the mall's movie theaters, people were still enjoying their films that they bought tickets to, probably not knowing what is going on outside of the mall itself. A lot of emergency responders and police still on the scene. They say they anticipate being out here for several hours. They have set up a reunification center for any people who are at the mall. But so far, that is the headline. We know we had reported earlier that someone was shot, but that might not be the case because all we know right now is that shots were fired, there was a shooting, but that police are still looking for a victim and they're still looking for a suspect. So they're going to be going from store to store. They kept reiterating and emphasizing the fact that this mall is quite a large shopping center, that they're going to be there for several hours. And so they even, had the possibility, they said, that there still could be an armed suspect in the mall or there still could be a victim. At this point in time, they just don't know possibly where they might be within the complex itself. So if we get any more updates, we'll bring them to you here on Live Now from Fox. I'm Andrew Kraft. Thanks for being with us on your Monday night. We have a little bit more left of our live programming. We're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, We're going to be hearing from the State Department, also what some of these Afghanistan refugees are up to now, several months after fleeing the country after the Taliban took over, just in time for the Christmas holidays. So all that and more in 2 minutes. Welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. This is Andrew Kraft here. We're taking a live look at the White House at the moment, and President Biden expecting to make remarks tomorrow on the status of the COVID-19 pandemic and what the administration is trying to do to stem off a rising case surge of the Omicron variant. But other entities are also trying to do the same, including professional sports. In the last several days, with these rise in Omicron cases, we have seen many professional sports games get canceled, including the NFL. And so games have had to be rescheduled. Players have tested positive, have gone on the COVID reserve list. Fox's Ashley Soriano has the latest from Las Vegas outside the Oakland Raiders Allegiant Stadium.
Raiders' first year with fans in the stadium, second year in Sin City, and second year dealing with COVID-19.
Just like anywhere else, you have to think about, can you operate your business if everybody's sick? The NFL is no different. They have to think about how they're going to manage this when there is a pandemic going on.
The NFL saw a record high of COVID positive players last week, 100 over 3 days, including the Browns quarterback Baker Mayfield. The NFL postponed 3 of its Week 15 games, allowing time for some of the players to receive a negative test result.
The problem the NFL is seeing is that they started testing a lot of people and they were finding positives, and they had to deal with that then and cancel games, postpone games, do things like that, which is affecting their ability to play.
Since then, the NFL announced it would reduce testing to only non-vaccinated players. Fully vaccinated asymptomatic players no longer have to test weekly.
All parties should be in the same bowl, regardless of if you're vaccinated or unvaccinated. I think everyone should follow the same protocol.
Lifford Hobley is a former NFL player for the Miami Dolphins and the president of the NFL Alumni Dallas chapter. If he had played in 2020, he would have played in front of cardboard cutouts. And if he were playing this season, he says he would do his part in the fight against COVID.
The responsibility falls on all parties, including the players. And of course, being responsible enough to make the right choices.
Okay, and we are getting now breaking news as well from another professional sports league, and that, of course, is the NHL. and they will pause their schedule 2 days ahead of its winter break amid a COVID-19 spike. The league will close team facilities on Wednesday, and players will return Sunday for testing, with plans to resume schedule on Monday. So I believe this is the first professional sports league to actually pause their entire schedule for 2 days ahead of this Omicron case surge, especially amongst their players in the National Hockey League. So many outlets and entities are responding to this, some differently than others. And of course, I was previewing, we'll hear from President Biden tomorrow what the administration is trying to do to urge more Americans to go out and get vaccinated, to go out and get their booster shots, and also to increase rapid testing availability for many Americans. We've seen a lot of pictures over the weekend of, especially on social media, people having to wait very, very long in lines outside of testing centers to find out if they're positive or negative. So we'll monitor all of that and be on top of the break. We want to take it out to Fox 6 in Milwaukee. Wisconsin was one of several states that accepted thousands of Afghan refugees as they fled the deteriorating situation there in the country as the Taliban took over that country with Kabul falling in August. But how are these Afghan families faring now, several months here in the United States? Let's take a look.
Starting off in a new country with nothing, Afghan refugees have been here for a few months now, and many are starting the process of resettling into the community. Fox 6's Derica Williams shares a way that a huge initiative that's going to help them get ready for life in the U.S.
We're going to talk about the judicial branch.
Some are in a classroom for the first time.
What territory did the United States...
While others are learning in a new and different capacity.
We're just helping the students understand the civics aspect of American history, the federal government.
Tyler Emanuelson, the citizenship and ESL instructor here at the Neighborhood House of Milwaukee's International Learning Program, is eager to teach and ready to welcome a new class. This time it will be Afghan refugees.
I'm hoping for a smooth transition. Many of the students are really always excited just to be here and be a part of the community.
Thanks to a Schultz Family Foundation partnership, the tens of thousands of Afghan refugees now in America will have increased assistance as they get acclimated.
We're putting $1.3 million to support 60 different organizations, one of them being the Neighborhood House there in Milwaukee.
Because starting fresh can be difficult.
What groups like Neighborhood House do is really help fill those gaps, and they fill the gaps using great volunteer support.
From getting physical donations to intellectual stimulation, Cynthia Zarazua says the guests will come here.
We are the largest center in the state of Wisconsin serving refugees in this capacity.
After being put through cultural orientation with the resettlement agency, these additional funds?
It allows us to increase our staffing because we do anticipate a large number of them joining our community to assist them in case management, pre-employment skills services, digital literacy, math, and citizenship.
Providing the resources needed to thrive.
Provide them with a safe, comfortable, nurturing place to be.
In Milwaukee, Derica Williams, Fox 6 News.
What branch is the president a part of?
All right, and we thank Fox 6 in Milwaukee there. Well, also meeting with Afghan refugees today was Secretary of State Antony Blinken. Let's hear his remarks.
Hi all, good afternoon. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Krish O'Mara Vignaraja and I'm the President and CEO of Lutheran Immigration and Refugee Service. It is so nice to be back here. Just a week ago, we opened officially this office and it is really so nice to be here. Just wanted to say once again, gratitude to Peace Lutheran and Pastor Sarah for the hospitality and the support. Today, I am delighted to welcome Secretary Antony Blinken. Secretary Blinken has helped shape U.S. foreign policy to ensure it protects U.S. interests and delivers results for the American people for over 3 decades and 3 presidential administrations. He served as Deputy Secretary of State for President Barack Obama from 2015 to 2017, and before that as President Obama's Principal Deputy National Security Advisor. Mr. Secretary, thank you for joining us here at our LIRS Alexandria office. Our incredible staff before you, 14 to date, 13 of whom are Afghans, have already served nearly 500 individuals in these halls. And as you'll hear more about, hold sobering and personal perspectives of the Afghan resettlement experience. On behalf of all of us at LIRS, welcome.
Trish, thank you very, very much. And it's, first of all, it's wonderful to see you again. For those of you who don't know, Trish is a former part of our State Department team. I'm so glad that you're continuing your remarkable service in this capacity. And Pastor, to others who are here, I really came with a few words. First of all, it's wonderful to be in this space where so many good things are happening and will continue to happen. To the colleagues from Lutheran services, the Catholic bishops, as well as the Ethiopian community, we're doing so much to welcome to our country friends, partners, comrades from Afghanistan. We're so grateful for everything you do. And I think all of you know that if you are making the most wrenching of decisions to leave everything you know behind, to family, community, friends, and come to a place that you've probably never been to before, and making that journey and then trying to get settled, quite literally, is in and of itself an extraordinary thing. And to know, to have such remarkably dedicated people showing the humanity, the care, the decency that really is America at its best is a very, very powerful thing. And it makes I know it makes all the difference in the world to those of you who made that journey. So to all of you who are involved in the resettlement effort, thank you for showing the best of our country. And to those who've made the journey, who were side by side with our diplomats, our men and women in uniform in Afghanistan over the last 20 years, we're so grateful that you're here. And we want to do everything we can to welcome you warmly to our country. You know, yours is part of a continuing story, because the story of the United States has been, generation to generation, new arrivals from all parts of this planet coming here, working to make a better life for themselves and their families, and as a result, making our country better and better, greater and greater, making an even better life for all Americans. That is the story of this country. You're now fully a part of it, and we're so grateful to have you. Another word I want to say as well, to those of you who stepped up and volunteered in one way or another to help this effort, that too is America at its best. And I've seen and heard about some of the stories. We know what volunteerism can do, what it can produce. There are a couple of you who may be even here today, Natalie Perdue, Dan Altman, looked to their neighbors to help with housing for a few families, and all of a sudden, neighbor after neighbor kicked in, and from 10 families, you went to about 55 families that you're helping. It's a powerful example of what people standing up, volunteering, being part of the effort can do. This has been an extraordinary effort. 75,000 friends from Afghanistan relocated to the United States, about 3,000 here in Virginia to date, and more to come. The resettlement effort itself has been quite remarkable. We've had a resettlement system that was in the midst of difficult times in recent years. We've had to really jumpstart many efforts. And the result, though, is that just in the month of October, we were able to resettle more people in 1 month than we'd ever done before in the history of our resettlement programs. That's a testament to, again, the remarkable work that the resettlement agencies and partners have done, and I think as well, I have to say my colleagues at the State Department, particularly in our PRM Bureau, have done a remarkable job in being partners in this effort. So it's holiday season. I thought it was a fitting way to mark the holidays by simply coming here and saying thank you to all of those who've been working on this effort, and to our newest neighbors and friends. Welcome. We're so glad to have you. and have a wonderful, wonderful holiday season. Thank you. Yes, please. Great.
So obviously you met Pastor Sarah a few years ago here in Shaw. So this is Mama from
Nice to see you. Great to see you both. Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. How are you?
Very good. Nice to see you.
Thank you.
Site Director from Lutheran Services Worldwide.
Thank you all. Really could not be more grateful for what you're doing. Thank you for
being here.
Hello.
Hi, I'm Samira with ECBC.
Great to see you. Thank you.
Mr. Secretary, I'm Stephen Caratini with Catholic Charities. We're representing the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops. These are my colleagues from Catholic Charities.
Thank you. I've known, seen, and appreciate your work for many years. It's great to see another example of it, so thank you. Wonderful to be with you all today. Thank you.
In terms of the Afghans who arrived in November, December, and who quickly stepped up to join our staff and serve others who are coming. These are some of our LSSNC.
Welcome. Good to see everyone.
Thank you.
How are you?
Thank you so much.
Good to see you. Thanks for coming out today.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And we are so grateful for being as a beneficiary and also part of serving again to our people who are in difficult condition. And we are also so grateful for receiving such a great helps and supports from the state and also from the LIRS and also all other companies who are serving for our people. Thank you so much.
Well, you're a wonderful example. We have an expression, paying it forward. If something, if a good service has been done for you, being able to turn around and do the same for someone else. You're a wonderful example of that. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Great to be with all of you. Thank you.
Now we'll be able to actually go and sit down.
Good. I know we're going to have a conversation, but again, thank you all. Great to see you.
Okay, Secretary of State Antony Blinken there, meeting with some of the resettled Afghan refugees, meeting with the organizations and their representatives who assist these refugees as well there in Alexandria, Virginia. We're going to include the State Department press briefing in our overnight programming. You're going to hear from spokesman Ned Price about a whole host of issues and topics, getting asked by reporters on a lot of different topics, including the Russian buildup on the border with Ukraine over the weekend. The State Department issued a do not travel advisory level 4 for Americans to Ukraine in light of this and also the COVID-19 pandemic. So when we come back, we are going to have a major update in the what many people have been following, the Lori Vallow case. And so Fox 10's Justin Lum has been doing some great reporting on that, speaking to stakeholders and key players in this long, drawn-out criminal saga. So if you're interested in that case and you've been following it for quite some time, you're not going to want to miss this. We'll be back in just a moment. And welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. I'm Andrew Kraft. We hope you had a great weekend, but we know it is a holiday week. It's Christmas week, but still a lot of headlines left to get to, and one of which we haven't really covered much here on Live Now, but we know there is a lot of interest in it, and that, of course, is the case of Lori Vallow-Daybell. Well, 2 years ago, the world was introduced to Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell, the pair now known as the Doomsday Couple. Mystery surrounded the disappearance of 7-year-old J.J. Vallow and 16-year-old Tylee Ryan for months until their bodies were found on Chad Daybell's property in June of 2020 in rural Idaho. Now, after nearly a year full of twists, turns, and questions, Vallow and Daybell were arrested, accused of murder. The Doomsday Couple is also linked to the deaths of their former spouses, who had sizable life insurance policies, increasing the confusion and frustration following and surrounding the case. Fox 10 Phoenix reporter Justin Lum has been on this from the very beginning. And you might know that name if you've been following the case very closely. He dives back, though, into the case, bringing us in-depth interviews to revisit the timeline and brings us up to date about where we are in this process, in this saga. And so right now we're going to play out this Fox 10 Investigates special right here on Live Now from Fox.
I'm Justin Lum, reporter with Fox 10 News in Phoenix, Arizona. We are diving right back into the Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell case. If you're not familiar with this complex story, there are a lot of names, connections, and events. So we're going to fill you in on the basics of who's who. We start with Lori Vallow. Lori is in an Idaho State hospital right now, deemed mentally incompetent. She has yet to face murder charges in the deaths of her kids, J.J. Vallow and Tylee Ryan. She's also accused of conspiring with her husband, Chad Daybell, in the death of his first wife, Tammy. Chad is still behind bars right now, waiting for a January 2023 trial, accused of murder in the deaths of J.J., Tylee, and Tammy, not to mention insurance fraud. Here in Arizona, Lori was indicted by a grand jury accused of conspiring with her brother Alex Cox to kill her then husband, Charles Vallow. Alex shot and killed Charles in July of 2019, and he died months later of natural causes. Meanwhile, Gilbert police recommend that Lori and Chad be charged with attempted murder in the first degree. The victim, Brandon Boudreaux. He is the ex-husband of Lori Vallow's niece, Melanie Pulowski. Investigators believe Alex Cox shot at Brandon while he drove his Tesla into his driveway. Here are the siblings, JJ and Tylee, along with their big brother, Colby Ryan. That's Lori's adult son she had with her second husband. He would take the last name of Joseph Ryan, Lori's third husband, and Tylee's dad. In 2018, Joseph Ryan died of a heart attack in Phoenix, and at one point in all this, the case would be reopened by Phoenix police to look deeper as all of this unfolded. And of course, the grandparents of J.J. Vallow, Kay and Larry Woodcock, who we met 2 years ago as they wanted the answer to one question: where were the two missing kids? So Kay and Larry, here we are 2 years since the search for your grandson J.J. Vallow and his sister Tylee Ryan went public. We're waiting on a joint trial for Chad and Lori, but Lori's still deemed not fit to proceed. Do you think, I think I know the answer, do you think she's really struggling mentally, or is this all a legal play?
100% legal play.
Yeah. She's malingering. We feel she's malingering. She is doing what she did to when she and Joseph Ryan were going through the court process, custody process for Tylee. She played with the court the entire time. They never held her accountable for anything, and I believe that's what she's doing again. So this way she's sliding through not being accountable again, at least for now.
We got the two case files from both Chandler and Gilbert police departments investigating Lori and Chad's alleged involvement in the death of Charles and the attempted murder of Brandon. But what was your reaction when this all came out just recently, to learn that these police agencies here in Arizona would release all of this way before trial?
Surprise.
I can't believe they released that much detailed
Detailed
information.
Yeah.
As a
totally agree.
witness, I would be very upset about it. I don't, because to me, what I would be filling in for the story for law enforcement would be, to me, a kind of, not a secret, but something that would be held in confidence until it was time for it to be made public, which would be in the court of law. I had no idea. I don't even know if this is normal for other cases for this much information to be disclosed before trials. I don't know if that's just an Arizona thing, Maricopa County, or what. Maybe you can answer that question. I don't know.
And in these Chandler documents specifically, there are some bizarre details provided on what is described as the fight between Charles and Alex, the struggle over the bat, and how Alex claimed Charles, we know, a former college baseball player, Kay, allegedly hit Alex with that bat in the head. And one document says Lori told her friend Zulema Pastenis that Charles had superhuman strength in that moment during this fight, and 100,000 dark entities assisted him, and Alex allegedly said he killed a zombie. This was right after, you know, the shooting. As Charles's sister, how do you process these things that police say were said right after the shooting?
Well, Justin, as part of the going through this process emotionally, I do not read everything. I do not dig that far into the things. I just can't. But so what you're just telling me, I'm just learning it for the first time. And what blows me away the most is that they were having prayer groups that Charles would be killed or dead or whatever it was. They were praying for him to be gone from this life, however the shape or form they were talking about. I know I read where one time that they had a prayer group meeting. Charles was taking JJ to Galveston, and they were praying for a car accident or something that bad to happen to him, and it would kill him. And JJ, the same. Who does that? And how does that not make them culpable when they were doing something, when you're praying in a group for someone to be killed?
To me, it's premeditation. It was set up a long time ago as one healthy male and seeing Charles and seeing his past. I've said since the first statement was made that little scratch that Alex had on the back of his head was a joke. It was put there by somebody else, either self-inflicted or Lori cut him to give him a little blood. But I can promise you this, Charles was absolutely much of a man. And if he chose to hit somebody in the head with a baseball bat, I can absolutely guarantee you, with the prior experience that he's had in accumulating his baseball career, he'd have knocked Alex's head off. There's no doubt about it. Yeah. And it was a setup. There's absolutely no doubt about that. It was premeditated, and he was cold-bloodedly killed. He was shot and then shot again, laying on his back and on the floor, and that is nothing but pure murder. Lori is guilty of murder right there. She is guilty of murder of the two grandkids. She murdered JJ, and they're guilty. And as far as Chad was right there. Whether he laid a hand on tying JJ up and rolling him up, it was in while he was there. And he is guilty 100% of premeditated murder. And as far as I am concerned, he can rot his ass in jail until there's nothing but gunk on the floor, as far as I'm concerned. And if he gets the death penalty and put to death, that's the best thing that could happen.
Kay, you and Lori had a text exchange. That was part of this document dump. Before Charles's funeral, she said she was going to send the ashes to you, and you wanted JJ to be at the funeral, but she said it would be too much for him. I'm sure you remember this text now. Now looking back, and everything's gone on, how do you reflect on that exchange between you two? That was probably one of the last.
I am a genuine person, and if I am not an actress in any way, shape, or form, but then I was, because I was having to deal with the devil in order to try and maneuver us in a good position to where we could get JJ from her. Just if we could have got him any way, shape, or form. I offered her so many ways. Let us come for the weekend. Let us come, give us an hour with him. Just give us some time with him, and we will. It's all on us. We'll be there, whatever, for your convenience. And for her to she just blew it off because she was angry about not getting the insurance money, which was not my fault.
And that insurance money, had she done it, we'd have signed the back of the check and say, here, give us JJ. No questions.
If she would have contacted us one time, like I asked and asked and asked, and she never would. If she would have one time, that's all I needed, was one exchange with her to talk to her and tell her, look, just come, here's the money, give us JJ, and we're done.
So that conversation happened after she found out she was no longer the life insurance beneficiary?
Yes, absolutely.
And that was more than one conversation too, by the way, and one contact.
You believe money is the main motivator behind all of these terrible events, or the spiritual beliefs?
Money is the motivator. The spiritual events were the method to get them there. That's all it was. It was a vehicle.
This has been nothing more than money, lust,
and greed.
And greed.
Yeah. Sex and greed.
Absolutely.
The root of all evil.
Here we are in December 2021. How have you two changed together individually since December 2019?
I feel like that it's brought us together to a point that we've always been close, and my life is taking care of Kay and providing for her. But this has brought us together spiritually, more emotionally. We both cry. We both are excited when certain good things happen, and we stay positive for the future, a combination of this case. And I think that we're retired. I've worked extremely hard my entire adult life to build two very successful businesses. And I put this ahead of all of that. It's taken me a while personally to realize that life was not about always working and accomplishing and prospering it. And now we just, it's a unity of, it's sorrow, but it's a unity of peace between us that we have each other. And I think that's the one thing that really binds us. And we never want to lose our drive for this case to be closed, and in the face of the law, by the law, things will be adjudicated. And I can't imagine not having Kay with me, and I can't imagine not having the support of the community. And by that I mean from our families to our friends to friends we've never met, and from the media like yourself, which you'll never know how appreciative we are of so many individuals in the media that have helped us and give us relief to a certain extent. This gives us an avenue, a venue to release a lot of our feelings and keep our spirits going.
Up until now, I have, and I'm speaking for myself because it's just been, although it's been a journey together, we each had to do it individually. And I feel like I have been beat up from one side and down the other. I feel like I've aged 10 years in the last 2, and there's no doubt in my mind. When I look in the mirror, I can see it. And I feel like now I'm starting to be motivated. I feel something coming out that I see a lot of things that need to happen because of what I've seen go on with the law and different things throughout this process that needs to be changed. And I feel I didn't know when I could do it, but now I'm feeling okay. I'm getting some energy. I'm not going to be their victim anymore. I'm going to be the kids' advocate. I want to be Charles and JJ, Tylee, and Tammy's advocate to help others. And how that looks right now, I'm not sure, but it's coming, and it will be something good, because something good has to come from this. Something really good has to come from this, because there's been too much bad.
Next on the vlogcast, Nate Eaton, news director of EastIdahoNews.com. He was on top of this case with us from the very beginning, on the ground in Idaho, as local law enforcement and the FBI investigated the disappearance of JJ and Tylee, as well as the death of Tammy Daybell. Nate, let's dive right in here. Between Chandler and Gilbert Police, we have nearly 1,500 pages of documents. Body camera footage of the Boudreaux shooting. We have been waiting for that for a long time. Of course, the Charles Vallow death investigation, and hours of interviews with detectives, crime scene photos, and all these emails with the FBI that we had to comb through as journalists covering this case. For you, though, I'm interested to know, what else is there left to know about this web of cases here?
Yeah, there was so much that was dumped. It's like we had been waiting for this months and months and months, and then it all came out. I think the thing that we're still waiting on is, what does Rexburg and Fremont County, what do those jurisdictions have as far as their notes, their interviews, their body camera footage, things like that, that still has not come out and may not come out until this actually goes to trial. We know that there's body camera footage from the day that the Rexburg police went over to Lori's townhome in Rexburg, the initial call to check on the welfare of JJ, because they played it at the Chad Daybell's preliminary hearing last August. But we didn't get to see it because we weren't actually in the courtroom. They didn't play it publicly. They showed it to people there in that courtroom. So I think that would be a fascinating look to actually see how Lori, her mannerisms, how she responded to the officers showing up. So we're waiting on that. We're also waiting on potential stuff that the FBI could have that maybe these local jurisdictions might not have. And I mean, whatever other agencies might have, there just could be so much more that comes out. But I think a large portion of it did come out when Arizona released all of those things.
And of course, the official causes of death for JJ and Tylee, to really find out, what happened to them. How did these innocent kids die? And we may not see all of this that you just mentioned until the trial. Really, the insight we get into Idaho authorities is from the Chandler police interviews, because these interviews were held at headquarters. So that was really interesting to see these other police agencies in Arizona conducting this investigation. Now, you interviewed Melanie Gibb at length. We all saw it. That was months before JJ and Tylee were found. And now we've seen those conversations with law enforcement. There's a lot to unpack because she was directly linked to Chad and Lori's inner circle as far as religious beliefs. We're talking about light and dark spirits, getting rid of zombies, etc. All of this discussion is just bizarre. But how much circumstantial evidence does she need to provide to really have weight in this trial? Because she's a witness, yet does she really know much about what specifically happened in these alleged crimes? That's a big question.
Well, it's interesting because, you know, when we first talked to her last May of 2020, she provided a lot of new information. And she was obviously a key witness at Chad Daybell's preliminary hearing. They used her a lot. But now that the police in Arizona have released all these documents, there seems to be a lot there of Lori and Chad's own words, of text messages back and forth, pages and pages and pages, and plans and you know, coordinating different things. So in the beginning, it may have seemed that Melanie was key to this, that she knows a lot of what was happening, but it might come down to the fact, I'm not a legal expert here, but it might come down to the fact that maybe they have enough between Chad and Lori and these other people that might stand, because it's their own words, more than based on what Melanie observed or what Melanie may know. Melanie may also know a lot more than she said. When we met with her in May, she told us about that recording she had of Lori talking about how she felt the need to murder her husband, but she turned to the scriptures and then decided not to. We knew about that recording, but Melanie did not feel comfortable having it be released to the public. Well, sure enough, it was then later leaked through other sources. So Melanie could have more. And Melanie could know more. And I think that Lori's defense attorney is trying to, well, he has subpoenaed her for information. She, last I checked, is not complying with that. So there could be a lot there with Melanie, but maybe as time goes on, her role becomes diminished as the other stuff comes out that they already have. One other thing, Justin, I thought of, yeah, you mentioned the cause of death for JJ and Tylee. We also don't officially know the cause of death for Tammy Daybell. Her children have said it was asphyxiation. Multiple sources have told me that. I know you have heard that as well, but no official has gone like on the record saying, yes, she died from asphyxiation. And who asphyxiated her? How did that happen? Who actually killed her? Obviously, Chad and Lori are being charged with that, but did Alex play a part? That's a critical piece of information we don't have yet that rests in the hands of Idaho authorities. So that will be something that we're waiting on as well.
You just said Alex Cox's name. Speaking of him, his widow, Zulema Pastenis, we got to see her interviews with police. What did you take from that? Could she be more of a key witness here?
There's a lot of speculation about that. And those interviews came out where, based on my observations, she seemed in the interviews to play the part that she was naive or didn't really know what was going on. But then when you go and read these text messages, it appears that there is more there as far as them talking about people turning dark and getting rid of these dark spirits, and Chad and Lori even asking her, I believe, to change the weather so that things could happen with Alex as well. So at least we know that Zulema did sit down with police, as far as I can remember, at least twice, based on what we've seen, so with her attorney. So she did talk with them. And maybe it's one of those things where she's cooperating with them in exchange for not getting charged. There might be some sort of agreement that was worked out there. I don't know all of the specific details about that. But maybe she could come into play and be charged. We're still waiting to see, too, if Melanie Pawlowski, Boudreaux, formerly Boudreaux, will be charged. Because that's another aspect that has come out, where she did some interviews with media, I don't know, over a year ago, and said that she didn't really know all the inner workings, and maybe these new body camera footage and that's come out, maybe the body camera footage shows more. So that's another piece that we're waiting to see what's going to happen.
Which leads me to, of course, the Brandon Boudreaux case and Gilbert PD. This really highlights one event that you and Eric Grossoth uncovered, the storage unit in Rexburg, because of how this is tied together with this attempted murder of Brandon and Gilbert. Police confirmed that Jeep tire and backseat were stored in that unit, which we clearly saw the objects, but for so long there was debate on who exactly went in with Lori at what time and what day before and after the attempted murder of Brandon. You took a deep dive into the video. It's very interesting. Just talk about that. At first it was speculation. Now we know so much more.
Yeah, I got to hand it to the guy that owns that storage facility, because he went through all of his footage and logged every time somebody visited that particular unit, the unit that Vallow-Daybell rented. And he wrote down if it was a male with her, female. I mean, he logged all that. He handed it over to us with the footage. Originally, the footage was grainy. We got it enhanced. And that's when we were able to clearly see the part where, you know, there was some speculation early on that there may have been a body coming out of that unit, but it turns out it was a car seat. Just the way that it looked like it could have been part of a body. It was the car seat. It was not a body, and the tire. And then it was also the same footage that showed Chad touching Lori on her rear end one day when they were leaving. And at that point, Tammy was still alive. And so that helps put together these pieces of what they were doing here in Idaho around the time that, I mean, the exact same day that Brandon was shot at in Arizona. And the vehicle seemed to match, that tire being removed. If you were going to shoot somebody out of the rear of a Jeep, you might want to remove the tire because you would have easier access. You might want to remove a seat so that you could lie down. Of course, me just speculating here, or at least, you know, based on what experts have told us. So that could play a critical part, or that could play a critical part here. It seems as if all of these things that you might not think about at the time, like the footage, this surveillance footage, like the text messages that you're sending to people, I would imagine all of the characters involved here never thought that that would all be retrieved and come back and really paint a timeline for law enforcement to use.
2 years later, how is East Idaho still impacted by this case, as far as the people there?
I'm asked about it almost every day. I'll go somewhere. It could be a grocery store, a restaurant, you know, down by the Idaho Falls River, and someone will mention that. I think people are anxious for it to be resolved. I mean, it's been 2 years. I remember early on, one of the key investigators told me that this is a marathon. It is not a sprint. And you know, there's been days where I know you and I have been like, are we at mile 26 yet? Because what else is there? And now we know that the trial, at least for Chad, is not going to be for another year, January of 2023. So that's going to put this at over 3 years. And I know a lot of high profile cases, it can take a long time. Some are resolved fairly quickly. It will be interesting to see where we're at a year from now, Justin. Is Lori competent? Will that be back on track? Will Chad have taken a plea agreement by then? What other charges will come down, if any? Who else will be charged? I think the overall feeling here, though, in Idaho has been, let's get on with this. And I don't think that was the case until those children were found in Chad's backyard. There were still a lot of people standing by him, but once those kids were found, I think that the public opinion really shifted once Chad was arrested and once those indictments came down for murder. Granted, they are considered innocent in the eyes of the law. I want to emphasize that until it goes to trial, they are innocent, but a lot of people have probably made up their mind. And that's one of the reasons I think why the judge decided to move it across the state, where maybe there's not as much, you know, influence or media coverage of it.
If you really follow the case of Chad Daybell, you've heard of Vallow, known as Another Voice of Warning, a website that provided a forum for doomsday preppers, people preparing for the end of the world. Chad was a listed author who also wrote a column on the site about his alleged visions, and he had a serious following. The woman we talked to remains anonymous. She's a former Vallow member. We'll call Amy. So Amy, I want you to tell me, if you can, how large this group was on Vallow. Like the entire scope of it all. What was the driving force behind people joining and reading what Chad Daybell wrote?
Well, I think that there were anywhere between 10,000 and 20,000 people at any one time that were members of Vallow. And at the time that we were members, you typically joined for like a year, but I think you could join for less time, like maybe 6 months. But I think most people joined for like a year. And people joined for a lot of reasons. There was people that were into prepping, but there was pretty much there were thousands probably of forums that you could go on to and, explore and learn things about things for health, exercise, you name it. It was just anything that was like self-improvement. So it wasn't all just dreams and visions, although that was a big draw. A lot of people were there to hear people's dreams and visions or to read them, I guess. And so, I think with Chad, people had read his books or they'd heard of him. He was kind of popular on Avow. He was probably what you'd call an Avow celebrity, where, people gave him a lot of respect and credence. And that probably happened because Christopher Parrott, who was the owner of Avow, he would promote Chad. He promoted his books because you could purchase, they had a place you could purchase things. Chad's books were for sale there. And then Chad also was the author of I think it was a monthly column called As I See It. And that was in a separate part of Avow called the Global Research Initiative, or GRI. And if you wanted to have access to that, you had to pay an extra $5 or something like that a month. And so what they would do is in the general forum where everybody got, anything, they would post the beginning of Chad's column. They'd post like the first 3 or 4 lines or maybe a paragraph. And it would always be kind of a teaser. And it would be like, okay, if you want to know more about what Chad has to say, you have to join GRI to hear the rest of it.
What did you think when you found out he wasn't in Hawaii writing this book about someone, but he was in Hawaii with Lori Vallow and her kids were missing, and these two were persons of interest, and, Tammy had just passed away?
Well, first of all, I don't live in the Intermountain area. I live quite a ways away. And so my daughter called me one Saturday morning and she said, Mom, she said, did you hear that Tammy Daybell had passed away? And I was in complete shock. And my daughter actually was really good friends with her daughter. And so, and we knew them. We knew Chad. My husband and I knew Chad and Tammy. So, I was shocked. I couldn't believe it. It just seemed so strange. And then, that was October 19th. And then fast forward 2 months, I was, because we have a lot of family members that live in the Intermountain area, I would go to a local, internet site of news for that area. One day I went there and I saw that it said that these 2 kids were missing. And as I read the article, it said that it was in connection with the death of a Fremont County woman, Tammy Daybell. And I was like, what? I was just like, I could not believe it. I just was like, how is this connected? I thought there must have been some kind of mistake because I just couldn't believe it. I mean, what do these 2 kids have to do with her death? And so, of course, then things began to unfold. And in fact, so that was like in December, right around the end of December, I believe, of 2019, that kind of hit the news. And I could be wrong about that date, but I think it was somewhere around there.
You're right. December 2019. Yeah.
So what happened was, in November of that year, and I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and we have what's called a general conference where our leaders will speak and give us words of counsel. And when I had gotten my magazine that had all these talks in it, the leader of our church, our president, had made in one of his talks, he talked about giving up something that was important to you, but that you needed to give up, you needed to sacrifice, and because maybe it was like a waste of time or something like that. And I remember when I read that, it was just like, it hit me like so clearly that I needed to let my membership to Avow expire. And it was going to expire like in the next month. And when I read that, I knew exactly that's what I was supposed to do. And it was hard because I had, I kind of liked, you know how some people are news junkies. They gotta, they check the news every, hour or twice a day or whatever. I was kind of like that on a vow. I was always checking, always seeing what everybody said, what were the latest dreams and visions or whatever. And so when I had that thought come to me, I needed to give it up. It was really hard, but I did. I let my subscription lapse. I never got on again, and a month or two had gone by. And when I read that article, I had an acquaintance from this area who I knew was a member of a vow. And so I hurried and called him on the phone and I said, hey, do you still have your membership to a vow? And he's like, yeah. And I said, can you jump on real quick and see if there's anything about Tammy Daybell and these missing kids? And he was like, yeah, sure. And so he jumps on and he's like, yeah, there's a lot of posts. People are saying a lot of stuff. And I said, oh, read them to me, and he's like, you know what, I'll give you my name and password and you can just get on and, read it all yourself. I don't want to sit here and read it all to you. So I said, okay. And so then I jumped on a vow and I would read, what everybody was saying. And it was really interesting. Everybody was defending Chad and saying that, oh, just totally defending him. Like he didn't do anything wrong. This is all normal. And as the more and more I would read and over the next, couple of weeks, it really became apparent to me that there were some really inconsistencies and things that were red flags.
Is a vow a radical offshoot of the Mormon Church? Like, you don't consider joining it back if it were up and running, right? Do you consider it a mistake now?
Oh, yeah, I want to say this, that I would not consider it a radical offshoot. What I would consider it is that it was a place where all kinds of people came, and there were people that were not members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints that were on there. There were other, denominations, Christian denominations, that were members of it. There were people that had similar interests. There were people that had interests in guns, or people who had interest in like essential oils or exercise or fasting or any kind of health practices or preparations or food storage or canning food. There was people had every kind of interest, and you could find a forum for that. Some of the people, I would say, were somewhat radical. They were diehard believers in the call out and going up to the camps, and they were dreamers and they knew this was going to happen. And then there were people that didn't believe in a call out, so there was a broad cross section of people. I wouldn't call it radical. I would say more, maybe leaning more to, I'd say, conservative type beliefs, or they weren't, I wouldn't say hardly any of them were liberal politically. I'd say most of them were conservative politically, but there was all kinds of people, and most of them were, I would say most of them were good people. There were some that were, kind of on the fringe, not saying that they were bad, but some of their beliefs were more fringe beliefs. But the people that I would, message personally or privately, they were very good people, very nice, normal, everyday people. And I knew people in my congregation that were members of a vow, and they were just normal people.
Finally, a deeper legal look at the case. We talked to Scott Reich, a criminal defense attorney and host of Crime Talk. He's been covering the Vallow-Daybell case, specifically its court proceedings, for a while now. Scott, thanks for joining us. Let's start with the news on the Daybell trial, the setting, the time for Chad Daybell, January 2023. That's what we're looking at. About 10 weeks scheduled here, but Lori Vallow still deemed incompetent as of now. Those cases are still officially joined. Her commitment extension should end sometime in March 22. But what foreseeable issues are there as the Daybell proceedings still move forward?
Like I said, there are two cases going on. You have Lori Vallow's case, you've got Chad Daybell's case. But Lori Vallow hasn't even been advised on the indictment, which alleges the homicide charges, because she was deemed incompetent in the previous case. So everything's been put on hold for her matters, but yet the judge is still trying to conduct and keep everybody in the loop from all sides, from the Daybell and the Vallow cases. But it gets complicated when one proceeding is stayed and the other is ready to go to trial. So the judge is going to have to make some decisions. Obviously, he said we're going to set this out into January of 2023, which seems like a long time because all of these matters have really been going on now for almost 2 years.
Yeah, how rare is it to have a situation like this where you have a co-defendant ready to go and another co-defendant that basically was never even arraigned on the charges?
It doesn't happen in most cases, but it's not completely uncommon. Most of the time you see it in co-defendant conspiracy cases, for example, like in federal court, where the guy that gets picked up first says, hey, let's go to trial. And then the government picks up somebody else, kind of a straggler, and they need time to get up to speed and prepare. And the speedy trial issues don't really begin until the last person is picked up. So it's not uncommon for something like this to happen. Doesn't happen every day, but it happens. It's a thing.
So John Pryor, Daybell's attorney, he does want the cases to be severed. Possible he can make that happen, or pretty likely with everything in this case and the ties between Lori and Chad that they stay, it stays uniform.
Normally a case is severed when co-defendants have made statements and they can be used against one defendant but not the other. No statements have really been made to police in this particular case. The reason why I think the judge would grant a severance of these cases, separate trials, would be the fact that there is going to be more than likely competing defenses, conflicting defenses, where Lori Vallow is basically going to be accused of doing all these bad things, or her brother, and Chad Daybell is going to say, I didn't know anything. Look, she fools everybody. She's crazy. And he's going to be pointing the finger at Lori Vallow. That's where I would see the severance come in.
This is an interesting situation where you have co-lead prosecutors, each from two different counties, Fremont and Madison County, and Lindsay Blake and Rob Wood, and then they have a deputy prosecutor that they wanted to get on this case to help out. Then you have co-counsel for Lori with Mark Means and Jim Archibald, and of course we just mentioned Chad Daybell's attorney John Pryor. So I'm going to talk about Mark Means. What were your thoughts about the allegations made by him in that motion, claiming that the clinician with the Department of Health had manipulated Lori to talk to attorneys with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints?
Color me skeptical, okay? It sounds like Lori Vallow did in fact make a call to the attorneys for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but it sounds like the attorneys did everything correct and said, hey, I can't talk with you. They contacted the attorneys, they contacted the prosecutors and said, hey, this is what happened. Who knows what really took place, but when you're dealing with people that are not competent, and as you may recall, not so long ago, she still may be believing that, the end of the earth is coming and everybody's zombies, things like that. You have to take what she would say as a grain of salt, with a grain of salt. I would be very skeptical if a clinician said, let's me get involved in your legal issues. In fact, go call these attorneys. I find that very hard to believe.
Yeah, because we, the public, haven't heard from this clinician in question. This is an alleged statement from Lori to Mark Means, and in allegedly talking to these attorneys. So in saying that, prosecutors Lindsay Blake and Rob Wood accuse Means of using hearsay, unfactual allegations, and unethical representation of Vallow. I mean, do you agree in looking at his recent motions, and what do you make of the state's argument? They said he should be sanctioned from the court until she's actually competent.
I think the prosecutors have had enough of Mark Means. He has made some outlandish allegations throughout these proceedings. And as an attorney, you can't just say whatever you want. And something of this nature, you need to be able to back it up with something other than my client, who's been deemed to be incompetent and possibly some sort of delusional issues, as the person that you're backing it up from. Now, maybe you could have brought it to the court's attention, say, hey, I'm concerned about something, but you don't go in there and basically start accusing everybody, and including the court, for creating these issues as it relates to the attorney-client relationship. Mark Means just seems to really go over the top on everything that he does, and I don't think he's ever won a single one of the arguments as it relates to any of these allegations he's made as it relates to misconduct by the prosecutors. Early on, you may recall there was issues about witness tampering and influence of witnesses, and they had a hearing. The Idaho bar had been involved in that, and it all turned out to be completely ethical. I read those transcripts that Mark Means thought was over the top, and as a defense attorney, I saw nothing unethical about it whatsoever.
And these prosecutors like to keep everything close to the vest. They like records sealed, hearings sealed. With so much media attention and evidence being released from Arizona like we've seen, how do you think they've handled all of this?
I think overall the prosecution's doing a pretty good job. Clearly, this is not the type of case that they see on a regular basis with this size of discovery, with this much media attention. I wish all the hearings were out in the open and in the public, but when you start getting into mental health issues, there are certain requirements regarding HIPAA and things of that nature. So I understand why the prosecution is trying to keep it sealed. The argument that, it's going to affect a jury pool or something of that nature, that is what I'm a little less concerned about. Status of people's mental health, I get that, but it's going to come out eventually. We just have to be patient.
Thanks for watching this exclusive vlogcast of Fox 10 Investigates the Lori Vallow-Chad Daybell case. I know it is a lot to absorb, but we want to keep bringing you in-depth updates, interviews, and deep discussion on this complex story. So please subscribe to our Fox 10 YouTube channel, and for more coverage on the case, head to fox10phoenix.com/Vallow.
And we thank Fox 10's Justin Lum. Just some great reporting. This is what we're going to be watching in the case, though. A judge has set a January 2023 trial date for Chad and Lori Vallow-Daybell on charges they murdered her children, J.J. Vallow and Tylee Ryan. Chad Daybell was also charged with first-degree murder in the death of Tammy Daybell, his former wife. Vallow-Daybell has also been charged with conspiracy to murder her former husband, Charles Vallow, but has remained in an Idaho state hospital deemed not mentally competent to stand trial. So really fascinating stuff there. I know it's quite a niche following, but we wanted to take the opportunity since we have Justin following that so closely, and he's in the same building as us here at Fox 10 in Phoenix and Live Now from Fox. I'm Andrew Kraft. It's been a very busy Monday. I know we're almost just days away from Christmas, but still so many headlines this week. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll give a preview of what we are monitoring and following throughout the week here on Live Now from Fox. We'll see you in a moment. Welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. We're coming up on 10:30 here Mountain Time in Phoenix, Arizona, almost 12:30 there. In the morning on the East Coast, there's a live look at the White House. And of course, we wanted to preview as well remarks from President Biden. We'll air those live tomorrow when they happen, announcing new measures to combat the spread and the surge in the Omicron case rate as the COVID-19 pandemic still not behind us here. So we'll have those remarks. And in just a little bit, we're going to be showing you yet again the White House press briefing. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki taking a number of questions on the COVID-19 pandemic and, of course, all the drama playing out with Senator Joe Manchin, who yesterday said definitively he's just a no. He cannot get there on Build Back Better. Also to preview throughout the week, remember those 3 trials that are now out for the jury. The jury deliberating in all 3 of those cases, the Kim Potter trial in the Twin Cities, the Ghislaine Maxwell trial there in Lower Manhattan, and of course, the Elizabeth Holmes trial in the Bay Area. And so once we get a verdict in those, we will have live coverage of that, bringing our reporters on live on the ground and also expert analysis and commentary as we've been doing throughout the duration of these high-profile trials. But for all of us here, I'm Andrew Kraft. We will see you same time, same place tomorrow. Don't forget, give